Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
And away we go on a Tuesday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us, along with James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. Great to have you with us today and every day here in your home for the Big 12. Tune in Big 12 studios on a Takeaway Tuesday. What's up, James? How are you?
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Spent a lot of time yesterday in the yard, and by yesterday I mean morning only.
Okay.
I feel like living in the state of Texas, like the Texas heat, there's a shot clock. There's a shot clock, and it's going to expire. We have a very limited window to get anything done or even be outside.
Yeah, very much so.
And that window only shrinks the closer we get to the month of June and July, when it's just unbearable, regardless of time of day.
We're actually, quite frankly, well overdue for 100-degree temps. It's been an unseasonably cool spring, I would say, which is nice. But yeah, we are. Feels like that buzzer needs to be going off any moment now. Like, where is this heat? It's supposed to be really nice today. It's kind of wild.
Totally. It's supposed to be beautiful all over the country. And actually, the best weather in the United States will occur right here in our area around Dallas, Texas. Windows open.
Wow.
Kind of day today.
Define best weather.
Well,
mid-70s, sunny.
Yeah.
A little bit of wind.
Yeah, like it's going to be a little bit chilly in the north. In our area, beautiful. They have pristine, perfect, beautiful, nice fare. We are in the beautiful category.
Awesome. Love it.
That feels pretty good.
Yeah, it feels great. Although I will say it's way easier to just avoid going outside so I don't have to do anything. You know, now it's like, ugh, I guess I got to take my kids on a bike ride after school today.
Yes.
Oh, I guess I got to play with them after school outside.
Yeah,
like,
when it's super nice out, guilt sets in.
Guilt. Just endless guilt.
Full throttle guilt if you're not outside.
I even did a whole like, well, it's like 100 degrees outside. My wife's like, no, it's not. It's like really nice.
65.
Yeah. It's like, we'll go out later. Later, it's going to be 100 degrees. What are you talking about? All right, on Takeaway Tuesday, James, last night in the NBA, the Oklahoma City Thunder dispatched of the Los Angeles Lakers in 4 games. It's a clean sweep of LeBron and the Lakers. Of course, Luka was injured, so it was all on LeBron, and he came together with a really good series, but ultimately fell short and didn't even win a game. Had an opportunity late in the game last night, got a really good look, but missed a bunny inside, and Oklahoma City gets the rebound and they win. So let's start here. You think this is it for LeBron? Taman T-Chains, our producer, made the joke that it's probably it for LeBron, but then he walked it back.
Yeah, he said he could see him pulling a Tom Brady and either coming back to prove that he can do it at the age that he's at, or even retire for a couple of years, get bored, and then come back. He's 41?
41.
Something tells me he's not quite done.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine he hangs it up not having the opportunity to at least play in a playoff series with Luka.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that's what's motivating him. I also think, like, there's no way he just walks quietly away. You know, like, we will know when it's going to be done for LeBron. I mean, LeBron makes a show out of everything. So, like, we are 100% going to be well aware of when his career is going to end. Like, it will be very much similar to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar getting, you know, gifts and presents in every city that he went to in a final tour around the NBA.
I also think, like, he's getting older. That's evident in his play. Like, his points per game, his numbers were way down this year compared to all of the other seasons. But in terms of, like, longevity and how many games, he's playing way more games than a ton of guys in the league.
Yeah.
A ton of superstars in the league. And I know that he's really invested into taking care of his body. He's got a bunch of companies that he's invested in that are all health and fitness centered. He played in 60 games. To play in 60 of 82 games at the age of 41, last year he played in 70. The year before he played in 71, and he's 39, 40, and 41 years old. So, I mean, until he can't play anymore, he's got a son in the league. He's got another son at Arizona. Like, basketball is what they know. I think he keeps going.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this. he made history last night. He and what's the
Bronny, right?
Bronny, thank you. They made history, becoming the first father-son duo to get swept in the NBA playoffs. The longevity part to me is the one aspect of him that gets him to the conversation. But let me ask you this, because it's funny because this is the part of his career where we should be having the MJ LeBron debate, and yet it seems such an old debate at this point because we've had it throughout his entire career, and yet this is the point we probably should have started having it. But I digress. That's just sort of the nature of the media business we live in right now. So that conversation has seemingly already jumped the shark. But is he the most, compare it to Brady? Is he better than Brady? Obviously, they play two different sports, but I'm just thinking about Michael was the most iconic athlete in his era, of an era of a lot of iconic athletes. But nobody was bigger than MJ. Nobody. Especially in the NFL. So, does LeBron have that?
No. Is LeBron Tom Brady? GOAT status? LeBron is one of the best of all time. One of the best of all time. But the thing that separates MJ and Tom Brady are the championships and the Super Bowls. LeBron has 4, right? MJ got 6. Tom Brady got, how many did he end up with? At least 6. 7? Yeah, he got his 7th in Tampa. So, no, that's the number one thing that stands out. I would put LeBron in that next tier. Kobe's in that tier. Shaq is in that tier. Peyton Manning's in that tier. Guys that were dominant in their sport but don't have the same number of rings. And then also, and we can debate this until we're blue in the face, LeBron had way more around him than any of those other guys during his championships. When he was the guy, and sure, he was the guy everywhere he's been, but he was surrounded by all-stars. Tom Brady had good teams around him, but they were teams that were very much built because of the cap off of rookie contracts. And then they'd have one free agent splash guy that they bring in, like a Randy Moss or a veteran player that could really help that offense. MJ had Scotty, but then when Scotty didn't have MJ, he fell off the map. And I kind of feel like LeBron's the same way. He's got all the numbers, all the stats, all the games, but when he didn't have a second or even third all-star around him, what did he ultimately do?
Yeah, Brady at 41 won a Super Bowl.
With Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Meanwhile, LeBron is getting swept in the second round of the playoffs.
By a much younger, quicker, athletic, deeper team. And he wasn't the best player in the series.
I knew that the two of us would agree on this because we're both of the same age. And I'd imagine Taman, though he's younger than us, would also agree. Or where are you, Taman, LeBron or MJ?
Without a doubt, MJ.
Yeah.
I respect the hell out of LeBron, but championships do matter. We can't ignore that fact. And the only credit I'll give LeBron on this run is that at 41 he shouldn't have been the number one guy. He was forced to be against the Thunder because Luka was hurt.
Yeah.
But also MJ had more success in terms of championships, titles, wins and losses than LeBron did in a much smaller window. He played in way less games. And then the games he did play in, you side by side their stats in some really important categories that aren't just volume stats because of the amount of games that LeBron played. MJ was better. He was a better scorer. He was a better shooter. He was a better defender. He was a better passer. All of them. MJ. It's not close to me.
So I asked our producer with Big 12 Studios, Anthony Smith, who's in his young 20s, the same question, because I figured the three of us would agree on MJ. And so I wanted a varying perspective from the younger generation, which very much is part of the LeBron camp.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to disagree with his rationale on LeBron. And that is, number one, he said, quote, "I would say it's hard to say someone you've never seen is the greatest. You always hear older people tell you about it, but you can't truly grasp since you didn't witness it in real time. Imagine it'd be the same as people your father's age saying Russell or Kareem was the GOAT." And to me, that stands out because the reason for me in Michael is in the moment, you knew he was never going to lose. Even when they were down they were down in a game or down in a series. Like, you just knew he was never going to lose. Well, you don't have that in hindsight, right? You just have the victories. You don't have that feeling of, oh, it doesn't matter they're down 3-1 in this series, or it doesn't matter that they're trailing in this game by 25 points. They got Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's huge. And I also think, like, there's very much I'm not just going to listen to the old heads sort of feeling, too, from the younger generation of why LeBron's the greatest of all time. Like, they want to have their guy. And their guy is somebody they watched from the time that they were 10 to now being 25 or 24. I mean, how many years has LeBron played? 20.
He's a 22-time All-Star, so I think 23.
Yeah, he's been playing since he was 18. He's 41 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have a generation, I mean, us included, we're the same age as LeBron, that grew up with him, but more so grew up with him from a young, impressionable age when they were first learning the game of basketball.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And this year's NBA playoffs are really intriguing to me because you've got the Thunder and the birth of their dynasty that started last year in SGA. But SGA is already 27. Okay, once these guys hit 30, 31, 32, even MJ, even Kobe, like the perimeter players is when like their numbers start to fall off, right? They don't have the legs. They don't shoot as well. They don't score as many points. So SGA's in his prime now, but it took him a while to get here. And then, so like who's the next MJ LeBron of the NBA after this LeBron window? Wemby was the next guy I thought of. Anthony Edwards doesn't have the pieces around him. He'll never be in the conversation. Cade Cunningham, maybe. I mean, he's still young enough, but is he really going to do it with the Detroit Pistons? I would say Wemby. So SGA and Wemby in the West, like that is very much a huge series, assuming the Spurs get there, for the league and for the future of the league and for the star power. Because Steph Curry had his window, but his window's closed. Like this is an opportunity for these younger players to shine and to be the next guy for the next 5 to 10 years.
We're also like 6 weeks away from the future of the league in a debate we've been having basically the entire season, and that's AJ or DP. And it feels like it started DP and shifted to AJ. Even Jeff Goodman from the Field of 68 mentioned on X yesterday that he's talked to 15 NBA GMs and 12 of them said they would take AJ over DP. But take a listen to this audio. This comes on the Zach Lowe podcast with Jonathan Givony from Draft Express. Here's what he had to say about this discussion.
I have Darren Peterson going 1, and I was a little bit surprised, how it's like the consensus has shifted. I mean, I know that Darren Peterson didn't have the season that he wanted, but I've seen those guys on the same floor in person probably 8 to 10 times, playing against each other, in a lot of different settings over the years, dating back to the under 16, USA basketball training camp. And not once did I come away thinking AJ DeBonza is a better prospect than Darren Peterson, including when they played each other this year, which is, Darren Peterson had an absolutely insane first half. I mean, it was one of his best performances. And DeBonza had, a kind of a DeBonza game where a lot of dribbles, a lot of tough shots, made some tough shots, incredible intensity and, will and aggressiveness and the scoring instincts. And AJ DeBonza is a great prospect, and I have a pretty good feeling that he's going to be an all-star. Darren Peterson is on another level, talent-wise, and I don't know if people watched enough. I think once they go back and go through the film, and they played each other 3 times last year, and Darren Peterson was head and shoulders better than AJ DeBonza every single time. Now, the creatine stuff and the cramping and, Darren Peterson did not have the same gear that we saw in high school. He didn't have the same twitch. He wasn't quite as explosive, blowing by people, getting to the rim, finishing. They moved him off the ball. Strangely, he was playing next to Melvin Council, who is, we've kind of seen him now in the NBA, the G League Combine, Portsmouth. Melvin Council is a very average player. I think that we're going to look back in 5 years and wonder how the hell did Darren Peterson not, have the year? I mean, I get it. Physically, all that, he wasn't there. Darren Peterson is an all-NBA player. He's an incredible talent. And I don't care. You have Trae Young, whatever. I think you take the talent in this draft, and Darren Peterson is the talent. I think he should go number one. I don't know what they're going to do. I haven't spoken with them, whatever. But knowing Will Dawkins, and they're gonna like you said, they're gonna look at this really hard.
All right, so Jonathan Givony, Draft Express, one of the best at evaluating NBA draft talent, says he's watched DeBonsa and Peterson on the floor at the same time 8 to 10 times, and every time he's left with Peterson being the better player on the floor.
Well, and what else stuck out to me is when Peterson was on the floor at Kansas, he said he didn't have the quick twitch and the burst ability, if you will, like he had in high school. And I thought it was still outstanding and best in the country. He could get by anybody. He could get any shot he wanted on the floor. So to think that he was even better in creating and hunting in high school. But the injury stuff is that's the only thing to me, because when we saw him healthy, the first time I saw him take the floor at 100% or so, we thought, for just a half against BYU, I thought he's doing things I haven't seen in the same way I haven't seen since Kobe and MJ. He is that type of player.
Yeah, this debate feels a lot like the Western Conference Finals, where it's like the perfect matchup. There's arguments on both sides. If you're arguing for AJ to be 2 and Derek Peterson to be 1, there's nothing to do with AJ being bad or anything. Totally. These are both elite prospects and elite players in a great draft. But Washington is in some ways, unenviable position based on the decision they've got to make. Now, it's enviable because it's the number 1 pick in one of the best drafts we've ever seen.
Right. And that's another great note, because Peterson goes number 1 if this is any other draft outside of the last 2 years. Our draft guest yesterday said this is the best 2-year window of drafts we've seen in NBA history. So there are so many other incredible future stars that are being drafted. That's the only reason Peterson falls to number 2. But the injury stuff is concerning because historically, guys that can't stay healthy their 1 year in college, it does translate to the NBA. Joel Embiid got hurt at Kansas, up and missed a ton of time in the NBA. Kyrie Irving only played in 11 games his 1 year at Duke. He missed 26 of the 37 possible games. He's had an injury-prone NBA career. And then Greg Oden, same deal. Hurt at Ohio State, barely played in the NBA because he could never get past his injuries. Even Bill Walton, he suffered a spinal injury towards the tail end of his career that really bothered him in the NBA. He won a title in Portland, but he only played 3 or 4 full seasons because of foot and ankle injuries. It just compounded all the other injuries. So historically, these guys that can't make it through a year in college, that carries over to the NBA. It is a thing.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned earlier the future of the NBA with this Oklahoma City-San Antonio series, and yet at the same time, a month later, we're looking at the future of the NBA in this draft and how many of these guys are going to be game changers in the league playing in major series in the next 2 years. That's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Of course, the Big 12, as we're seeing play out with the NBA draft, what happens in the Big 12 happens in the world, and we are presented by Modelo. Plenty more to get to, including this AJ Darren Peterson discussion, which we will have more of in Valid or Void on today's show. Plus, our Big 12 top 5 series continues with running backs. Just a few position groups left. Running backs take center stage next on the show today, and this is quite the list. On the way next, though, what the 2025 portal class tells us about how the Big 12 teams are at evaluating talent. That's next. With James Amari, it's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Jackson's in trouble down. David Bailey, he is a sack machine. Third and 8.
touchdown.
Big 12 today, Big 12 radio presented by Modelo. Our Big 12 power ranking today. Our Big 12 power hour today. Power ranking on Wednesday. Join us each and every day for our power hour, which occurs at 1 and 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Eastern. Features spring football and BYU. We did a spring football series post-spring check-in on each and every Big 12 school, and so if you missed it, check out our Big 12 Power Hour. More content, more James, more Ari, each and every day, 1 o'clock Central and 3 o'clock Central. You can also catch the interview of the day as well, each and every weekday in our Big 12 Power Hour. All right, Jared Calhoun, the Cincinnati men's basketball coach, is coming up in about 15 minutes from right now. But The Athletic released a article basically re-ranking college football's 2025 portal class. So, using the information and the data from the season to reflect on how things were a year ago. Basically, like how we evaluated portal classes teach us about how we are looking at this year's portal classes. And James, this is a really interesting exercise from the standpoint of there's just not much history here. The transfer portal phenomenon is a very recent phenomenon. And so when you go back, you're going to look at commonalities amongst the teams that win at the highest level, and you're going to see, not a lot of transfer portal. Well, last year with Indiana breaking through, becoming the first non-blue chip ratio team in the modern era to win a national title, and that is, it's the first time a team that did not have 50% of the roster be at least 4 or 5-star recruits over a 4-year period. It's the first time it's ever happened in the modern recruiting era, so that's a breakthrough, and that's happened through the portal. So it's a totally different world, and there's really no trends to go off of only from what we've seen. Even going back, was it in 2024 that Kansas State beat Iowa State to win the Big 12 championship?
In 2022, Kansas State beat TCU.
Oklahoma State. No, TCU, you're right. And then the next year was Oklahoma State, Texas. Yeah, now I'm trying to go through it in my mind. Texas beat Oklahoma State. That was their last year in the conference. And then first year of the new Big 12, quote-unquote, Arizona State wins over Iowa State.
Correct.
Now, you go back and look at that grouping, right? So, Kansas State, Iowa State in 22. Sorry, Kansas State and TCU in 22. Those were, for the most part, homegrown teams, right?
Yep.
Not much reliance on the portal there.
Mm-hmm.
23, a similar dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
24, those where things start to shift.
Mm-hmm.
Where Arizona State is built more through the portal, and they knock off a homegrown team in Iowa State. And then, of course, Texas Tech doing what they did last year. So you start to see how much of an impact the portal could have in a given year, really going back 2 years.
Yeah, to me, we're only entering the third year of this
Yeah.
new era of the portal and NIL. So exercises like this, re-ranking the classes, I'm so glad that The Athletic took the time to do this because I think it's important. At the end of the year,
Why is it important?
the receipts come due because we need to evaluate who's winning and losing in the portal post-season. Indiana, to your point that we've talked about a lot on this show, their portal class last year was ranked 25th in the country. They win the whole thing. So I think it shifts the perception of, okay, these are the programs that are really strong at identifying talent and fit and culture and all of those other things. And these are the programs that are just going after the 4 stars and the 5 stars, like an LSU, like an Ole Miss, and hoping that they hit. Of the 4 schools ranked in the postseason re-ranking the 2025 transfer portal classes, all but one outranked their preseason portal class ranking significantly. And the only school that didn't was Texas Tech because going into the season they were number 2. They end up at number 2 postseason. But everybody else, Houston, BYU, Utah, Arizona, all crack the top 20 post-2025 portal classes.
It all made significant jumps. BYU jumped from 83rd all the way to 13th. That's
Houston.
insane.
Houston goes from
27th
to number 8. Utah goes from 37 to 15. Arizona goes from 52 to 19. And I think the thing that's similar with all of those programs, none of those programs completely overhauled their roster because of a coaching change, because of NFL departures. These are programs that are more selective via the portal, and they're the ones that are hitting, not just in the Big 12, but nationally. So, like, the overarching takeaway is that the Big 12 looks really strong compared to the other leagues at identifying talent in the portal, because these are all schools that finished higher than their preseason ranking in portal classes, and everybody else in this top 20, most of them finished below their preseason ranking.
Yeah, I mean, one of the highlights for me is what Houston is doing is remarkable when you consider that the financials for 2025 have come out, and Houston is at the bottom of the Big 12 what are they? They're just less than $100 million in revenue versus a Texas Tech program that's, just south of 150 in revenue or whatever the number is. So it makes what Houston's doing in basketball and football even that much more impressive because they don't have the money. I mean, they're basically, in a league of their own in terms of the money. Like they're obviously raking in more revenue than teams in the American, but they're certainly not on the Big 12 level. So what? Okay, so let me ask you this. So how do some of the results from this inform your thoughts on 2026, or do they?
No, they definitely do, because let's take Houston, for example. Houston had 4 All Big 12 selections that were transfers. Amari Thomas from UAB, Tanner Koziol, the tight end from Ball State. They had a defensive lineman, Eddie Walls III from FIU, and a cornerback, Will James from Southern Miss. What's the common denominator with all 4 of those guys? They all transferred from group of 6 schools. None of those were power conference transfers, and they all made All Big 12.
2 of them are back, and are expected to be towards the top in the Big 12.
That's it. 9 starters from that portal class are back, including their quarterback, Connor Wegman, who was not one of the 4 All Big 12 guys, but a power conference transfer who came back home to where he was from, just outside the Houston area in the Houston suburbs. So it tells me that Willie Fritz is nailing identifying talent and fit for that Houston program, even with the budget that they're working with. Texas Tech, we expected them to hit, and they did. The other team is Arizona that sticks out to me. BYU sticks out to me because BYU is super selective in the way they attack the portal. They only have 12 transfers coming in. So it tells me maybe BYU's not as bad off at wide receiver as we thought because they've got 2 transfers coming in, including a former 4-star who's 6'6" in the Casper kid from Oregon. Utah hit in the portal because of Dampier. And then Arizona's the other one that I think Brent Brennan is doing a fantastic job of identifying talent. They brought in a corner from San Jose State who got drafted. Now, the difference with them is only 2 of the starters came back. They brought in a lot of guys that had just a year of eligibility left. Most of them are in the NFL now, but Trey Spivey is back. Tristan Bounds is back. Those are 2 transfers that they hit on. So they were 52nd preseason. They end up 19th. They brought in 29 guys.
Yeah, it feels like the takeaway for the Big 12 is the Big 12 is very good at identifying the right talent that fits their systems, because ultimately it's not just about finding talent. It's about finding the right guys that fit what you want to do and fit that locker room. When you look at some of the other stories, so the number 1 transfer portal haul and the re-ranking in 2025 is Indiana. Of course it is. Well, they were 25th in the ranking a year ago. LSU is number 1. They finished 9th. And that might be high, quite honestly, given the disappointment of the season. Texas Tech was 2. They finished 2nd in the re-rank, which is incredible. Miami is close. They were 3rd. They finished 4th. Ole Miss was 4th. They finished 3rd. So it's Miami and Ole Miss that just switched spots. So I have to ask the question again, what are the takeaways here? Because it feels like Indiana is a complete anomaly. Do we just chalk that up to it being the Kurt Signetti effect?
To a degree, yes. But I think it magnifies the importance of what the portal has become. The portal can completely turn around a season, a program, and lead to historic heights like we saw with Texas Tech this past year. And the other teams that are ranked in the top 5 of the postseason portal rankings are all teams that played in the college football playoff. Ole Miss, college football playoff. Miami, college football playoff. Oregon, Texas A&M, Oklahoma. The top 7 schools were 7 of the 12 teams in the college football playoff. So I do think it magnifies the importance of the portal and the importance of getting the right guys, not just the best talent, but the guys that fit your system. And of those 7 schools, just about all of them finished above their preseason ranking. The only one that didn't, outside of when you get to number 8, is Houston. So this also magnifies to me that, hey, are we sleeping on Houston?
Yeah.
And we're really high on them.
Right. I mean, 100% my takeaway is they've got a bunch of guys, and we know that a second-year transfer, how much more impactful they can be. So are we sleeping at Houston to be a team that could win the Big 12 championship?
Right. And maybe be an at-large like contender to make the college football playoff. Because if their portal class that they've brought in this year, which is ranked much higher than the portal class they brought in last year, finishes above its ranking, like if they hit on Mekhi Hughes and all the guys they've brought in the secondary, Shadray Hurst on the offensive line, the receiver from Oregon State, Trent Walker. You pair that with last year's class, what they've done in the high school recruiting rankings, which they've seen an uptick, like in Willie we trust. Willie Fritz has been a winner everywhere he's been. And Houston could very much be a player in the Big 12 and in like nationally. That's another thing. It's the top 7 programs, not really any surprises. Miami, Ole Miss, Texas Tech, like Indiana, defending national champs. And then Houston at number 8? Like, they could be really, really good this year.
Yeah, like I thought Willie Fritz would be good at Houston, but I underestimated how good he would be.
And how early on in his tenure.
Yeah. Like, just based on history, it's like, yeah, he's going to be successful, but then he comes in and it's like, we'll see. Houston doesn't have that much money. He's a little bit older. It hasn't mattered.
And I felt
You can
like
still evaluate talent.
which is what he did at Tulane.
Yep.
I mean, he took Michael Pratt from a kid nobody wanted, under-recruited, had no power conference offers, to the American Conference Player of the Year. They get to a high-level bowl game. They beat USC. Like, he did things at Tulane that nobody's ever done. And now at Houston, he's already doing it in year 3. And I remember last year, I was much higher on Houston than the public. But I still thought a really good season for them was 7-5. Maybe 8-4. To win 10 games, it's making me kind of rethink, am I undervaluing Houston, even though I think they could be another 10-win football team? Is that too low for what they have coming back and what they've brought in?
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. On the way next, Jared Calhoun, the Cincinnati men's basketball coach, joins us. Brand spanking new Cincinnati coach with lots of optimism. We get into that next. On the way, also, our top 5 players at every position series continues with running backs. That is 20 minutes from now. On the way next, though, it's Jared Calhoun. This is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio.
Attack the defense with your mind. Here he is, Morton. It's a deep ball, left sideline, dropping it right in for Virgil. Oh, what a ball from Baron Morton. Beautiful pass. I mean, that's a big league throw. That is a clinic again to Reggie Virgil for a first down.
This is a BB. Like, that is a difficult throw to make, and what a catch. Williams stays in. Play fake. Morton well protected. Spins one. End zone. Caught! He drops it in the bucket. Coy Aiken reels it in. 42 yards. Downfield strike.
Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. And we are pleased to be joined right now by the new head basketball coach of the Cincinnati Bearcats. Jared Calhoun is joining us here on Big 12 Radio, coming from Utah State and taking over a program that he knows very well from his time in Cincinnati, along with Bob Huggins. Coach, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Ari. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate your time. And let's just start right there. You know, obviously, in hearing about your background, reading about you after getting this job, it makes a ton of sense, based on the time you spent in Cincinnati. So let's just start right there. You know, why the Bearcats? Why now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the timing was obviously pretty awesome, right? We just finished an incredible year at Utah State. This opportunity was one that just couldn't turn down, right? I mean, the familiarity with the program. You know, I grew up a Cincinnati Bearcat fan. I grew up wearing the shorts and, all the different jerseys. So when I was coming up, the Bearcats were everything in the state of Ohio. So we're going to do everything in our power to get it back and get it back right away.
Man, I love the shorts reference. Us too. Kenyon Martin was obsessed with those Cincinnati teams. How would you define your coaching philosophy? Because you're from the Bob Huggins tree. If you don't play defense, you don't play. But then you guys at Utah State were so efficient offensively, so I'd just love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I think we're very modern in the way we play the game of basketball. I think we're very old school in how we build our program. Not only Coach Huggins, but I played for a Hall of Fame coach in Raleigh Massimino. Learned from some great coaches, Jeff Young at Walsh University. I was with Hugs a long, long time ago. I've been a head coach for 14 years. So you have to evolve. You have to adapt. We've been one of the best offenses in America, not just really at Utah State, but our time at Youngstown State. So it's pretty simple. We want to find, create, and keep advantages, right? How do you score the basketball? You create an advantage. It's the same thing in football. Defensively, we want to be very disruptive. We play a couple different defenses. So I think kids like playing our style, James. I think it's an attractive style. Nobody goes in the portal to talk about defense, right? So, our style is pretty unique to the rest of the country because we have a history of scoring the basketball and being efficient year in and year out.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, from a modern perspective, because we just talked about this with Gary Parrish, that it's constantly evolving. I mean, we've saw the college basketball be overrun by pace and space. Now we saw a Final Four that included some of the best front courts in the nation. So, what is sort of your task in trying to stay ahead of the curve there, and maybe trying to find the new philosophies that will be the best part of this, the best aspect of the sport?
Yeah, I think it's the best part of the transfer portal. I hear a lot of coaches complain about it. I actually, we've won 101 games in 4 years since the transfer portal started. So I'm kind of enamored by it. I kind of enjoy putting the puzzle pieces together. And what we try to do, Ari, this year at Cincinnati, every year is different, right? Because you just don't have the budget. At Utah State, we had $800,000 our first year. We were the lowest at-large team in America. This past year, we had $2.4 million, and we won 2 championships and beat Villanova. So I think everywhere you're at, it's a little bit different based on your budget. But we wanted to get positional size. We wanted to be very long. We wanted to be very athletic at every position, and I think we were able to do that in the portal. Obviously, we had to bring a whole new team in. So it was exciting. Not a lot of sleep, but we got a lot to sell. Because Cincinnati has certainly changed a great deal in the last 20 years.
Well, man, I love your journey. You've won everywhere you've been, NAIA, D2, Horizon, Mountain West, now in the Big 12. Of all these stops, which stop and why has taught you the most about coaching people?
Yeah, I would say Fairmont State. That was my first job. I had 2 guys around my staff, Mantoris Robinson and Paul Molinari, and then a young coach by the name of Joe Mazzulla, now the coach of the Boston Celtics. So, you're driving up 79, you're in vans, you're on buses, nobody's watching you. You have no idea what you're doing, and you're just learning, right? I was 29 years old as a head coach, so that's really where we kind of learned how to manage people, try different things, and then I'm so grateful. Youngstown State had a great athletic director in Ron Strollo, a great president in Jim Tressel, a guy that has become a great mentor of mine, and then Utah State was awesome. I mean, it was just an unbelievable 2-year run, great home court environment. I thought the Herd, their student section, is one of the best in the country. So everywhere you go, you get a chance to learn, and it's really about meeting great people. I loved all my stops, but Cincinnati's home. It's just a different feel.
Yeah, and talk a little bit more about your relationship with Joe Mazzulla, obviously, which goes back to your time in Morgantown. And then I believe, was it that there's like a book that's influential in your life that he shared with you?
Yeah, so there's a lot of Joe Mazzulla stories. Obviously, he's one of my good buddies. I was the best man in his wedding. I coached him. He was on my staff. I thought he was the greatest skill development guy I've ever seen. Taking a player and trying to get from point A to B, and just building those relationships, and just talking to him, leadership, different things. But yeah, I mean, after year 2 in coaching, this was about 14 years ago. We had won 22, 23 games, and I was in a dark place because we couldn't beat this one team called West Liberty. The guy's a great Division II coach. I believe he's won 3 national championships. And Joe put a book on my desk called "Lead for God's Sake" by Todd Gongwer, and the author, actually, he's become a good friend of mine. And it changed, my perspective on life. This was about a crazed basketball coach that all he cared about was winning and losing. And that was me at a young age. So I've evolved, I've changed, empowered everybody, and, it's made me a better coach.
Jared, when I look at like your body of work, something that's incredibly rare is everywhere you've been, you've improved your win total, like stacked season after season. Fairmont State, 20 to 22 to 25 to 34. Then you did the same thing at Youngstown State, and even the 2 years at Utah State. Is that what you try to do? Let's get a little better each season. Like, how have you been able to accomplish that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's understanding each other, right? I think it's a collaborative effort. I think it starts with your staff. I've got one of the best young staffs in the country. Everybody tries to go out and hire the big name recruiter or the big name assistant coach. We're guys that just eat, sleep, drink basketball, right? We love the game of basketball. All of our wives are very, very close. It's a family affair. Coach Massimino taught me that many years ago. So I think continuity with the staff, and then I also think continuity within your program. At Cincinnati, we did it a little different in the portal. We went young and old, and that's been our recipe. We don't go all old guys. We get a mixture of young guys that we can build the base with for years to come, and then we get our 1-year guys, and then if the 5th-year rule passes here, which everybody says it's going to, we got a chance to keep all of these guys, and that's how you build something special.
You've had a lot of success, especially the last 2 years in close games. I think you were 8-1 last year, then 9-3 in 2020, the year before that. So what's the secret sauce?
Yeah, I mean, it's something, I talk a lot with Joe about different coaches. My staff is really, really good. It's situational basketball, right? It's one in the margins, right? Before and after the half. It's how many points can you create on baseline out of bounds? How many points can you create on ATOs? I'm enamored by that stuff. I think those are, duties of the coach. If we have a low percentage, we're not efficient coming out of timeouts each game, it drives me nuts. Those are the things that keep me up at night. So we got to do our job as well, and I think in college basketball, the more you practice it, the kids understand what you want. And we won a lot of close games over the years because we were prepared. An unprepared team is, a direct correlation of the coaching staff. And that's the last thing we want to be, is unprepared.
Coach, when you say the eligibility 5 for 5, are you talking about like players that you've signed in the portal that would be with you for 2 years? Or are you talking about guys that maybe with Cincinnati last year or came with you from Utah State? Like, can you just touch on that?
Yeah, I think it's more, James, the guys that we signed in the portal that are now seniors,
Got it.
going to be seniors coming up, they could actually possibly be juniors, right? Or get that fifth year back. So, we signed some underclassmen in the portal. And then we also signed a lot of one-year players that if this goes through, they'll get that year back. So certainly it's going to be interesting to see the direction of how this goes.
All right, last thing for me, Coach. Who was your favorite Cincinnati player growing up?
Man, that's hard. I'm a little biased, but there's three great ones from Cleveland. One went to my high school: Mel Levitt, Steve Logan, Kenyon Martin. The list is so deep. Nick Van Exel. There's a lot of them. I don't want to leave any of those guys off. Corey Blunt, David Flint. I mean, just a ton of them.
Yeah. Can't wait. We'll meet you here in a couple weeks at the spring meetings in Frisco. Congratulations on the opportunity at Cincinnati, and can't wait to see your team this next year, Coach. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to meeting you.
Thanks, Coach.
Jared Calhoun, the new Cincinnati basketball coach, joining us here on Big 12 Radio. Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
There's this little look right over.
Daniels floats one.
Big 12 Today with James. Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
It's Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, along with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. Great to have you with us today and every day here. And you're home for the Big 12. Tune in Big 12 Studios. And we continue our series, breaking down the top 5 players at every position. We made our way through every position, including the entire defense. And the only positions left would be running back, quarterback, specialists, and top 5 offensive players overall as we close this series out. And so today we land on top 5 running backs. And a couple of years ago, this was the major position of strength. Last year, I would say it took a step back. Heading into this season, though, James, you've got to be optimistic about what you see across the board here.
Totally, yeah. Major bounce back year in the league. Number one, the league did really well in the portal. And I think running back is no longer maybe as coveted as a position when it comes to the transfer portal as it was maybe year one of the portal. So some really big names entering the league, and then quite a bit of depth, I would say, in the conference in terms of guys that are coming back with Wayshawn Parker and Joe Jackson at Kansas State. Brown at Arizona State, even though he wasn't the primary back, still averaged over 6 yards per carry. And then, the Big 12 reigning offensive player of the year in L.J. Martin. So the league really deep at running back. I think offensively, this is the deepest position, at least so far. We'll see what tomorrow brings that we've put together. This was challenging to pick out 5 guys from what could have been 10.
Yeah, and I would imagine there's probably no suspense for each of our number ones, but let's start with number 5, James.
All right, number 5 for me is a transfer who's familiar with this conference, Cam Cook at West Virginia. Committed to TCU back in 2023. He was the backup his freshman year. He got his shot to be the starter in 2024, but TCU was very much patchwork on the offensive line. They leaned on Josh Hoover's arm, and he only had 400-some yards, but he did have 9 touchdowns. So he transfers to Jacksonville State because he's looking for a bigger role. All he did last year at Jack State was lead the nation in rushing yards. Over 1,600 yards, 16 touchdowns this past season, forced over 100 missed tackles. He's extremely elusive. And again, he was a 4-star recruit out of Round Rock, Texas, out of high school. Bounce back year for him. He's at West Virginia. Rich Rod's scheme. The running backs shine regardless of who's carrying the football, and he's a really good guy to have as your primary back. So I have Cam Cook at number 5.
Yeah, I've got 2 transfer portal players at the running back position on my top 5 list, but you could make the case for at least 3. Number 5 for me is Wayshawn Parker, who jumps into my top 5 because of or getting in the way of one of those other additional transfers. And look, I mean, he was the top running back on the number 2 rushing team in all of college football and the best of the Big 12. 981 yards and 6 touchdowns, 6.6 yards per carry. Led the league in yards per carry among backs with at least 100-plus attempts. New OC Kevin McGivern said, quote, Wayshawn to me brings a bell cow, a kid that rushed for almost 1,000 yards, as someone that you can really lean on, as someone that can be take extended carries, and I think he's even capable physically of getting more carries than what we had got last year. He had 11.5 per game. I see a major uptick there. I think this is a guy that could be a 1,200 to 1,400-yard back in 2026. And now he's got his former running backs coach who's with him from Washington State now to Utah. So Wayshawn Parker for me, number 5.
Love it. He also makes my list, but he does make the top 3. I have Caleb Hawkins at number 4. Transfer from North Texas, from Shawnee, Oklahoma. He was a 3-star recruit out of high school, but he was a basketball player first. And so a ton of schools fell off or didn't even consider him. He ends up choosing North Texas over a Division II school, Emporia State in Emporia, Kansas, and Central Oklahoma. And all he did as a true freshman, rushed for over 1,400 yards, averaged 6.5 yards per carry. He set the NCAA FBS freshman record for touchdowns in a season last year. Now, why I don't have him higher is because he's 6'2", he's 200 pounds. A lot of his missed tackles or broken tackles were because of his strength, and in the Big 12, everything ratchets up in terms of the physicality. He still runs a little bit too upright for me, but I do think he's a top 5 back in the league. He was the New Mexico Bowl MVP, had 200 yards in his last game at North Texas. So I've got Caleb Hawkins at number 4.
I also have Caleb Hawkins at number 4, 1,400 yards rushing, 5th in FBS. He averaged 6.2 yards per carry. And you mentioned this, his size. He ranked 3rd nationally with 1,000 yards after contact and 4th with 86 missed tackles forced. So elite numbers for a freshman. But to your point, you got a much more difficult competition now that's ratcheting up. Look, he has more rushing yards himself than the entire Oklahoma State roster combined in 2025. They had 1,420. He had 1,434. And when you look at what Oklahoma State has had at running back, Ollie Gordon, Chuba Hubbard, Justice Hill, not to mention Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders, Hawkins feels like the next in line there, and especially because he's a local kid from Shawnee, Oklahoma. I have the guy that has 3 years of eligibility remaining, Caleb Hawkins, also number 4 on my list.
Yeah, you walk through the Oklahoma State football facilities, and they have a wall with these giant posters of all the NFL running backs. It is so deep. They are running back you. Number 3 for me, this is where I have Wayshawn Parker. I think he's really underrated, and to me it's because he never had more than 20 carries in any game last season. But he averaged 7 yards per carry. That led all Big 12 running backs with at least 100 attempts. He had almost 1,000 yards, 981. He had 6 touchdowns, and he got better as the season went along. He had 4 straight 100-yard games to close the season against Colorado, Cincy, Baylor, and K-State. He was the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year back in 2024 at Washington State. His running backs coach gets hired by Utah. That's why he transferred from Washington State to Utah. So his second year with that same coach, actually what will be his 3rd year, his second year in that system.
Right.
I know he had NFL offensive linemen protecting him up front and paving the way. So that's my only concern with him, but I think he's undervalued. I've got him at number 3.
So our 5 and 3 are flip-flopped. I have Cam Cook, the West Virginia running back, at number 3 on my list. The number 1 rusher in all of FBS with 1,661 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5.6 per carry at Jacksonville State. The reason he wasn't higher on my list, which 3 is pretty high, is because he had 2 years of experience in the Big 12 at TCU and did not play well. I think in his second year where he was the feature back, he was just like under 3 yards per carry. So he exploded in Jacksonville State, and hopefully he figured some stuff out that will help him explode once again in the Big 12. He said, quote, "I think I'm bigger, I'm faster, I'm smarter, and I know what's going on now on all sides of the field." He led the FBS in runs of 10-plus yards with 54, had 10 separate 100-yard games, and forced 100 missed tackles in the season. Cam Cook, the West Virginia running back, number 3.
I'm going to assume we have the same top 2. At number 2 is Cameron Dickey, the running back from Texas Tech who enters his junior season. Was only a 3-star out of high school, and this is like James Blanchard, the Texas Tech GM, at his best. Because if he plays running back in high school, he's a 4-star kid. He played quarterback in Austin, Texas, so he's a 3-star. They convert him to running back. His first year as the starter, over 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns. He also had 25 catches. I think he's really underrated as a route runner and pass catcher. He played in every game, became the 9th Red Raider to rush for over 1,000 yards in a season as a sophomore. Was the Doak Walker National Running Back of the Week twice during the season, had that massive game against Kansas. So a converted quarterback tells me he's just scratching the surface of what he can do. I think his yards per carry will be up, maybe total production down a bit because it's a crowded room, but I've got Dickey at number 2.
Yeah, number 2 for me is Cameron Dickey, the most proven Big 12 level back on this list aside from the guy that's number 1. And 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns on the conference championship team. And he's multifaceted. He's a legit 3-down back. Had 24 receptions last year for 224 yards. Look, the wrinkle here is what does his 2026 production look like? Because my guess is he will not be another 1,000-yard back this season because of Quentin Joyner, who's returning from an ACL injury. If Joyner's fully healthy, he's the most talented back in the room. But I think Dickey still becomes a 1B with Jacoby Williams in there, too. It's a crowded running back room, but there's no way you could have this list without Cameron Dickey, who, from what he did last year alone, puts him on this list. Number 2 for me is also Cameron Dickey.
Yeah, totally agree. Number 1, the consensus pick is L.J. Martin, who's 6'2", 225 pounds. He has led BYU in rushing all 3 seasons. Could have been probably a top 4 or 5 round draft pick. He comes back to college, has a chance to become the first BYU player to ever lead BYU in rushing 4 consecutive seasons. Remember, 2 years ago, he battled through some injuries, still led the team in rushing. Last year, 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, had a career best 222 yards against Cincinnati late in the year. He opened the season with 3 straight 100-yard games and then got a little bit dinged up middle part. His health is a concern for me, but towards the tail end of the season, he was unstoppable. Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. And I think the BYU offensive line, with what they did in the portal, the returners they have coming back up front, should be stronger this year than it was last year. I did not think it was a top 3 offensive line in the Big 12. Could be this year, so he could have an even bigger senior campaign, L.J. Martin.
Yeah, no question who number 1 is on this list. It's L.J. Martin. 6 100-yard games, including 222 against Cincinnati, 162 against BYU, or rather against Arizona, and then 122 against Utah. 7 of his 12 touchdowns came in the final 4 games, so he got stronger despite that injury that he was nursing in the back half of the year. He had 3 touchdowns against UCF, and he had that, not ankle injury, shoulder injury that required surgery after the Big 12 championship game. He needs just 1,355 yards just to surpass Jamal Williams as BYU's all-time leading rusher. So he's got a chance to do it. He's currently 9th on that list at 25-41. Of all the Big 12 returning players, he might be the best across the board. In fact, that may be a list we have to put together too. Top 5 returning players. He's simultaneously the conference's best returning player, the reigning conference offensive player of the year, on a CFP contending team with a historic record chases motivation. So think about that, right? Like, he's the highest level returning player in the Big 12 on a championship caliber team chasing history at BYU. Should be a fun season for LJ Martin. All right, so our lists are the exact same. Just you have Wayshawn Parker at 3, and I have him at 5. We flip-flopped Cam Cook. The one guy I thought might be on your list would be Mekai Hughes, the transfer from Tulane to Houston. He just missed my list. He would be 6th. There's a few other guys you could probably add here as well, but I'm kind of surprised we've got the consensus here on our 5.
Yeah, because the next 5, like if this was your starting 5 and your bench 5, there's not much of a drop-off at all when you look at Mekai Hughes. The only reason I didn't include Mekai Hughes was because of what happened last year at Oregon. Why couldn't he get on the field at Oregon? Was it a system thing? Was it, hey, I'm not getting on the field, so I'm going to pout the rest of the season? I don't know. He was really productive 2 years at Tulane. He was an All-American. The guy that actually would have been next on my list is Joe Jackson at Kansas State. He had 293 rushing yards against Utah, broke a 21-year-old school single-game record that had previously been held by Darren Sproles. His scrimmage yards in that game, because he had some receiving yards too, were the most by any Power 4 conference player all season long. But you have a game like that and you don't quite get to 1,000 for the season. He finished with 9-11 and 8 touchdowns. Now, some of that had to do with the Dylan Edwards injury saga that just lingered all season long. I think he'll be 1,000-yard back this season for Kansas State. So he would have been next. Mekai Hughes was one that I considered. I did look at Dylan Edwards at Kansas. I thought, he deserves a mention. And then Cameron Petaway, the Bowling Green transfer at Iowa State. The Kyson Brown at Arizona State would have been another. So, that's kind of my second 5 in the Big 12, and maybe even Quentin Joyner and Jacoby Williams at Texas Tech. Is there that much of a drop-off there after Dickey?
Yeah, I would say, there's a next group of the top 3 next transfers, which is Landon Chambers from Central Arkansas going to UCF. It's Mekai Hughes going from Oregon, Tulane before that, to Houston. And look, Dylan Edwards, to me, within this offense, is a guy that you could project to have a really big 2026 with Andy Kotelnicki back at Kansas and a renewed effort on the running game. So I think that'll be really interesting to watch for. And then there's Zylan Perry from Cincinnati, their Louisiana transfer, would be another guy who had 138 carries for 689 and 8 touchdowns in 2025 at Louisiana, after being the lead back at Louisiana. So he should be an interesting addition as well across the board. I think running back, for me, is the most intriguing position we've talked about yet, because there's some potential breakout star candidates with already an established group this will be a very good year for running backs in the Big 12.
Completely agree. And a guy that didn't sniff my top 5, but would probably be like breakout candidate number 1 is Jeremy Payne at TCU. That is going to be a run-first offense. And he had 174 yards and 2 touchdowns against Cincinnati late in the year. He also had 44 receiving yards. So he had most total yards from scrimmage by a TCU back in that game since 2003. He had that electrifying game-winning 35-yard catch and run in the Alamo Bowl against USC. With new offensive coordinator Gordon Samus coming over from UConn, like his offense has averaged almost 200 rushing yards per game. He's going to be their primary back. His yards per carry was almost 6. He had the most explosive runs last year for TCU, but collectively as a team, they just couldn't create any lanes for their backs. But Jeremy Payne with this new offense, I think he's going to shine at TCU.
Yeah. All right. That's a look at the top 5 running backs in the Big 12. We hit quarterbacks tomorrow. Should be a very interesting list to see our top 5 quarterbacks. Will Avery Johnson be on your list? Will Brendan Sorsby be on your list? That's interesting.
You know, and I think about 1-2 punches coming back in the Big 12. Quarterback and running back. It's loaded. Last year it was Sawyer Robertson and Bryson Washington at Baylor. This year you've got Bear Bachmeier and L.J. Martin. You've got
Drew Mestemaker and Caleb Hawkins at Oklahoma State.
Devin Dampier and Wayshawn Parker. Avery Johnson and Joe Jackson at Kansas State. I mean, it is deep in terms of quarterback, running back combo in the Big 12. So really good shape there for the league.
All right, that's a look at our top 5 running backs across the Big 12 and our top 5 newcomer series presented by Modelo. Along with James Westlake, I'm Ari Temkin. It's time for a little valid or void next. Will the Utah Jazz end up with A.J. DeBonsa? Is Kingston Fleming's going to find himself in the top 5? And is West Virginia the best team in the Big 12 in baseball? It's all coming up next as we debate in Valid or Void next. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Glad to see your family as that ball is picked up on Clark. The captain at the back end plucks it away for TCU.
Got to get it to the 29. Third down. Lopez to the outside. And it's intercepted. And it's going to be a walk-in touchdown for the veteran Bud Clark. His 12th career pick. Robertson, pressure inside, and he's dropped. Bud Clark gets the sack. His first sack of the season. And it comes out to 20.4 miles per hour. 4th fastest for a safety in the FBS. But number 2's Logan got in the way. Douglas, he is hammered. Look at those guys in purple, all arriving in a bad humor.
Take a look here at Bud Clark come down and make this play. Now, he doesn't get him down initially. However, he stops the play from happening and the rest of his teammates can come and race to the tackle field.
Lopez gets hit, and that's a strike that he threw in there.
Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. That is James Westling. I am Ari Tepkin. Taman Turner, T-Chains, is producing today's show, and it's time for T-Chains to get involved here with a little valid or void. He throws out a topic. We decide if the topic is valid or void. You know the rules.
All right, fellas. The NBA draft lottery happened over the weekend, and the Washington Wizards have the number 1 pick, but the Utah Jazz have number 2. So my question is, valid or void, the Utah Jazz will find a way to get A.J. Debonsa.
Void. I think Utah's general manager, Ryan Smith, makes the call and pushes for a swap. But this rarely happens, and there have been plenty of instances where a team in a city wants a certain player. Also, Darren Peterson's not a bad 1B, right? Like, we know what he's capable of when he's healthy. We haven't had a draft night trade for the number 1 overall pick since 1993, the Chris Webber, Penny Hardaway trade. Oh, and by the way, that blockbuster after Orlando drafted Webber 1, they flipped him to Golden State, cost a fortune. Andrew Wiggins was traded like 30 days after the draft back in 2014. So in terms of just historically and the odds of this happening, I put it very much at void. And also, like my point about Darren Peterson being there's not a huge gap between 1 and 2 like we've seen in other drafts. So, no, I don't think it happens.
Yeah, if I'm Washington, I got a chance to do something very savvy here. I'm going to validate this because, man, the more I start to look at this and think about it, the more I think Darren Peterson should go 1. And if you're Washington and you think the same thing, well, then I am calling up Utah and asking what else I can get to move down to 2 so that you can take Debonsa, and then I'll be happy to take the guy that I wanted anyways at number 1 and maybe add future first-round picks in the deal. So I feel like Washington's in a really good spot in terms of being able to leverage Utah and their want of Debonsa. Yeah, if I'm Utah, I'm fine with the way the board falls. I'll take Debonsa or Peterson and be happy with it. I think there's a lot of reasons why Peterson could be the best player in this draft, but we know that, the ceiling is higher, but the floor is better for Debonsa. You know what you're going to get. So I'm going to say valid. I think Washington, when they do their evaluations of this, they're fine with Peterson, and they know that Utah wants Debonsa, and because of that, I think they leverage Utah and try to add additional picks in order to get Peterson at 2 and still add additional resources.
The other thing, the Jazz have a lot of assets that they could offer. So they're locked into number 1, a first-round pick in every draft for the next 7 years. Not a lot of teams have that because there are so many trades.
Right.
They also have some extra swap rights in 2029 that they could also trade. And I referenced the draft night trade. There was a trade pre-draft back in 2017 that Danny Ainge was a part of. Danny Ainge traded back from number 1 to number 3 to ultimately draft Jason Tatum back in 2017.
I was going to say, the Markelle Fultz trade, I thought, was the number 1 overall pick. Oof. And Danny Ainge, the GM of the Jazz right now, I think you said Ryan Smith, who's the owner of the team.
Sorry.
Ainge is the GM.
Yeah.
Could he be on the other side of that this year?
And I didn't realize how much Ryan Smith is connected to Debonsa.
Yeah.
He helped him land his NIL deal. Debonsa trained on Utah's practice court while he was playing in high school and at BYU. This whole narrative of the connection isn't just geographics and being manufactured in some way. It is very much real.
Well, and Danny Ainge and Ryan Smith are both very active with Kevin Young at BYU, so it's really interesting.
Should be interesting to see how the chips fall. All right, next question. Or next topic, I should say. So 2 weeks ago, Kelvin Sampson said that Kingston Fleming was not a top 10 pick, that he was a top 5 pick. So valid or void, Kingston Flemings will be drafted in the top 5.
I'm going to void this, but I agree with Kelvin Sampson. I think there's a pretty good consensus here in the top 4, and that's Debonsa, Peterson, Boozer, and Wilson. So we're basically looking at one spot, and I think it's 3 point guards up for the 5th overall pick, which is Darius Acuff from Arkansas, Keaton Wagler from Illinois, and Kingston Flemings from Houston. Now, I think there might be some teams at 3, 4, 5, and even 6 that might regret not taking Flemings. When I watch Flemings, I see some D Rose in his game. His speed and power, at 6'4", is very impressive. Now, he's not a high-volume three-point shooter. He only attempted 2.9 threes per game in 32 minutes per game. So I think that is why he'll fall and be the third of that point guard grouping of Wagler and Acuff. So I think he ends up at 7. Still not a bad spot, but not in the top 5.
Yeah, totally agree with 1 through 4 are pretty much baked in. 5, 6, and 7, all point guards. Something tells me Wagler's going to go number 5 or Darius Acuff. Darius Acuff is a walking bucket, and he's already built physically for the NBA. He could step on an NBA floor right now and probably get close to 20 a night. Whereas Kingston Flemings, because of his frame, is maybe a little bit more of a developmental guy in the NBA. And by developmental, 2 or 3 years, the guy's going to be an all-star. I mean, he's 6'4", he can handle it. The only knock on his game, to your point, is his shooting. He only shot about 32% from 3. Houston was one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the Big 12. But that is easily correctable in the NBA. When you're working with a full-time shooting coach 24 hours a day, that's the one area where guys make the most growth at the next level. So everything's there for him to be worthy of a top 5 pick, but something tells me that a team's either going to fall in love with Acuff being more ready now or Keaton Wagler and the fact that he's 6'6" and can handle the basketball like a Cade Cunningham, who's also 6'6". And so when you watch Cunningham in the playoffs, you see that potential in Wagler. I think those two guys probably go a little bit higher than Flemings, or at least one of them, which would mean he'd be picked 6 or 7. I don't think he falls past 8 or 9, but top 5, I'm going to also void this one.
Fair enough. As a Mavs fan personally, I would be happy with him at number 9. Don't see it happening.
Oh,
Yeah, that'd be best case scenario.
him and
quite
Cooper
frankly.
Flag together?
Yeah.
That'd be very fun to watch. All right, next topic. We're going to the baseball diamond, where we've talked about Kansas all season, but as you guys know, Kansas was swept over the weekend by West Virginia. So, valid or void, West Virginia is the best baseball team in the Big 12.
Well, the other team that's the best team in the Big 12 is Kansas, and West Virginia just swept them on the road in Lawrence. So, yeah, I think it's West Virginia. They jumped to number 9 nationally. It's their highest ranking of the season. Saban's teams late in the year really thrived down the stretch, and it's pitching versus power. They're two very different rosters in the way they're built, and we saw over the weekend that a deeper rotation is going to trump that power with Max Yell is 6-1 with a 2.20 ERA. They've got another kid, Cole, who's 8-1 with a 2.64 ERA. Like, they've got the best 1-2 pitching punch in the conference. They won the Big 12 regular season title last year, so, like, they're not a dark horse anymore. So, yeah, I would lean West Virginia simply because of what just happened this past weekend in Lawrence.
Yeah, I'd void this and say they didn't prove they were the best baseball team in the Big 12. They just proved they were the best baseball team last weekend. And Kansas, I mean, they've taken their lumps here. They lost last week to Creighton in their midweek game and then lost 3 straight to West Virginia. So I think they just had kind of a bad stretch here. They still are in position to win the Big 12 outright. They've just got to take care of business this weekend against BYU, and they will still be the number 1 seed heading into the Big 12 tournament. So, look, West Virginia's really good, and they took care of business against Kansas on the road, including a 13-2 mercy rule win to get the sweep on Sunday. But the only thing they proved to me is that they're the best team this past weekend and nothing more.
All right. The next topic, we're going to the football field. Valid or void? Will Hammond, who we know tore his ACL last season, valid or void, Will Hammond will be available to play for Tech in their opener against Abilene Christian.
I'm going to say void here. I think, and maybe Joey McGuire is just playing coy, but Joey McGuire historically is not the type to basically send smoke signals. He's tells it like it is. And, even with injuries, I think he's trying to manage expectations and under-promise and over-deliver here. And look, could you beat Abilene Christian with Kirk Francis? Sure. But you're trying to build something for a team that wants to win a national championship and thinks it can compete there. I think you need your quarterback as many games as you possibly have. So I don't think you're rushing him back, but you're encouraging him to come back, but quickly, which means I should validate this. But I think they will play this slower. I think they feel like they've got the confidence in order to beat Abilene Christian and some of the teams in the non-conference. They've got a very easy non-conference. I think he's going to get back week 3 against Houston, which is what Joey McGuire told us. And again, he's not the type of guy that sends smoke signals. He usually talks legitimately and genuinely.
Okay, so you're saying week 3. So you are voiding it.
Correct.
I'm voiding it as well. I mean, Joey McGuire has not been shy about that public week 3 timeline. Also, like Texas Tech will beat Abilene Christian with Cameron Dickey at quarterback, which he did play in high school. Kirk Francis is capable. He's been on the field a ton at Tulsa. Also, they have a redshirt freshman who did play late in the year and was like 4 for 5 passing against West Virginia in Lloyd Jones III. That's not Big 12 title contender at that position, but it's enough to buy you some time. So I do think that they'll want Will Hammond. I did it. I finally did it. Will Hammond on the field as early as possible, but week 1 against Abilene Christian, no, that just feels way too early. I don't think they roll him out until week 3. And if they do, he's not the starter. He's coming in like getting a couple of series maybe here and there to get him ready for the Houston game week 3 on that Friday night. But I don't think he's like the starter going full throttle the entire way until that game at best. That's assuming there's no setbacks between now and then.
I agree with you both. I like how you guys both brought up how like right to the point Joey McGuire is, because I remember last year when Will Hammond played, the question was who's going to be the quarterback, Will Hammond or Bear Morton? He was like, Bear Morton's my quarterback. He was very upfront about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, last topic, guys. Still with Texas Tech. So valid or void? Texas Tech will go undefeated this season. Valid or void?
Oh man. Well, they didn't go undefeated last season, and they were much more sound at the quarterback position. But they don't play BYU this year. They get Arizona State at home. I think somebody trips them up. So, no, I'm going to void this and say that they have one loss like they did last year, and they still made the college football playoff. The question will be this year, does an 11-1 going into the Big 12 championship game Texas Tech team get in the field? But I think because of where they're going to start in the preseason rankings, with or without Sorsby, they're going to be a preseason top 10 team. I just don't see any other way. So even if they have a slip-up at some point, like they did last year as a favorite on the road against Arizona State, it's really hard to go undefeated. Really, really hard.
And I'm assuming he's asking in the regular season, not including the postseason,
correct,
to win a national championship.
Yeah. So I'd say 11-1. They lose somewhere in the regular season.
Well, that could be week 3 to Houston. I mean, especially if, first of all, if that's Hammond's first start coming off the ACL injury, that's a tough spot to be in against a really good Houston team week 3. And to your point, if he doesn't even start that game and comes into that game, that puts him well behind the 8 ball. I mean, I would say their toughest game this year is that Houston game. Arizona State, and Houston are the 3 best teams on their schedule, and they play all 3 of those at home. The only other one late in the season, if Oklahoma State is as good as people think they are, at Oklahoma State will be a toughie as well. They do have an easy schedule, and so I think there's a legitimate case to be made that they could go undefeated. And if we were talking about a Texas Tech team with Brandon Sorsby at quarterback, I think we would be absolutely validating this. But to me, it's the question marks at quarterback that lead me to think to void this, they will not have an undefeated season.
Well, and remember the Texas Tech-Houston game last year, which was...
Yeah, very close.
So, like, the final score is very misleading. Texas Tech jumped all over Houston early on, and then Houston played even with them the rest of the way, and they did it without Connor Wegman. Zion Chris played most of that game for Houston. So this is going to be very different this year, especially now that like Houston knows what to expect. They know about the speed. They know about all the NFL talent. They know what the scheme looks like. So I'm not saying Houston pulls it off yet, but like that's very much on my radar as well.
All right, that's valid or void, along with James Westling, Amari Tepkin. On the way next, Chris Level, our buddy from the Texas Tech Red Raider Radio Network, joins us. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Shoulder fade. Was that caught? It was! Caleb Douglas. Look at what he found. first down and another big play. There goes Douglas inside the 25. He's been a big play machine, a gain of 43 more.
Final 30 seconds of the quarter. Second down, throw to the end zone. Douglas. Touchdown, Texas Tech. What a drive.
Morton long throw to the sideline, and the catch is made. Another missed tackle, and Douglas is free inside the 20 and inside the 15.
14 touches, almost 90 yards. Back shoulder fade. Was that caught? It was! Caleb Douglas. Look at what he found.
Baron Morton wants another touchdown for the road, and he's got it for Douglas, who finds his own camera on a touchdown.
Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios based on our last couple of valid or void questions. Let's talk now with our buddy Chris Level. covers Texas Tech for the Red Raider Radio Network at Locked On Red Raiders. Chris, how are you?
Gentlemen, how we doing on this fine Tuesday morning?
Doing fantastic, thank you. Always great to hear your voice.
Back at you.
All right, so I know you were just listening. Your thoughts on our valid or void discussion as it pertains to the quarterback and whether or not Texas Tech goes undefeated.
Yeah, boy, it is. We've tried to talk about this and about every which angle we could have around here, and there's just we just need closure, and I don't know when we're going to get it. You just don't know what you don't know, and I say that from. I have people that just tell me Brendan Sorsby's going to get a 4-game suspension, and and then you have people that say he's going to go in the supplemental draft, he's not going to play it down, and then there's suggestion that Will Hammond will be ready by late August, and then or early October. I mean, it's just so it's just hard to speculate with all this. But to your point about like what Texas Tech's season could look like, regardless of who's playing quarterback, if they don't, if they don't screw it up, I mean, they should still win 10, 11, 12 games, regardless of who's playing quarterback. That's just how potentially good the rest of the roster is, and how good they are up front on both sides of the ball. I guess if you pinned me down, I still feel like that Will is I think a mid to late September return. And again, what does that look like? Is that there's a difference between is he cleared or is he good to go and help you go win a football game? Those are two different things. And what makes him good is his ability to run around and extend plays and use his legs and those kinds of things. So there's no doubt that he is the future of the program, and it's just the irony here is that if he doesn't get hurt, we're not talking about Brendan Sorsby as it relates to Texas Tech, but here we are. So it and I will say that I do find it more than ironic too, and I think an honor that I was invited on this lovely show the day that you were breaking down running backs. That is a position that Texas Tech is particularly deep in. So
yes.
There you go.
Yeah, so Chris, setting the quarterback position aside, I mean, when you look at Texas Tech's roster, where do you think Texas Tech has made the most improvement in terms of position groups?
Yeah, because I think with Sorsby at quarterback, there just wasn't a question on your football team. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't exist. Now, are you going to be as dynamic with your pass rush? No, but there's no question about who the pieces are that are going to fill the void there and those kinds of things. Could you create more of a pass rush and be more, from some different spots? I think what you'll see is that Austin Romaine, one of the transfers, he could be somebody that they utilize as a DPR at times, and Corey Pratt, the linebacker that transferred from Houston, that Shieldwood coached at Tulane and at Houston, that they love him, and he's kind of an X factor guy that they can move around some different places. So it just may look a bit different, but other than that, like roster wise, there's no question on their team where they have improved. I think speed at receiver. I think as much as you loved Caleb Douglas and Reggie Virgil, both draft picks, I think that they lacked a little bit of juice in that, running by people, and I think they put a premium on that. They are much better at running back, which we can get to that. You guys already know what I'm going to say there, because they're just deeper. It was a bit tenuous last year. It turned out to be extremely productive, but there were games where Jacoby Williams was playing a bit dinged up, and you had nobody to pull out of the game to kind of end the game and just milk it, because you really felt like you had two running backs, and then it kind of fell off. They had moved a DB over to running back. They had a converted linebacker over at running back just to kind of fill out the depth on at that position. So you had a two-man or two-headed monster there, but and what's crazy is like you guys had Cam Dickey as number 2 on your ranking in the league. Cam Dickey in mid-August, before Quentin Joyner got hurt, Kim Dickey was third string on this team. That's the reality. I mean, and now Quentin Joyner, he went from being the hunted, now he's the hunter, and I think that's a fascinating dynamic, just as kind of because I mean, Jacoby and Cam are like real dudes. These are guys that I think can play at the next level. They've been extremely productive, and they're true sophomores. These are kids that are just brand new into college. But I think so, and I will say the biggest difference with their team is how improved they'll be on the offensive line, and they needed to be. They were, for as good as they were pretty average with their offensive line play last year, and it still was productive. It still worked, but I think some of the red zone issues can be attributed to where they were, but they should be much improved on the offensive line.
Yeah, and as much as Baron Morton takes the responsibility for Oregon and being there for that game, man, they had no protection for him against a really good Oregon front.
Yeah, so they bring back both tackles. I think Howard Sampson should be a draft pick next year. Jacob Ponton may have as much upside as anybody on their entire football team from an NFL prospect. You may get 2 more years out of him at right tackle. Sheridan Wilson, their starting center, this is going to be a 3-year starter. He's been on some lists as far as the top 100 returning players in the country because he's just kind of you're just so used to him being around. But the guards is where your improvement's going to come. And I think that inherently Howard Sampson and Jacob Ponton could improve. But Jordan Church was one of my favorite portal additions, and he was graded as one of the best run blockers that was available in the portal. But then Hunter Zambrano, who was one of the crown jewels of their portal class a year ago and then redshirted last year and has started a ton of games in college, he gets inserted into the guard spot. So they've just got a very experienced and very big offensive line with position flex, and they've got some depth there. And then I just think their tight ends, this is BYU probably could have something to say about it, but we all know what Terrence Carter is, but Jet Carpenter, he had some NFL draft grades this past year and was thought to be one of the best run blocking tight ends available in the portal. And I think he could have been a late round pick had he gone out. So if they run 12 or 22 personnel and they just want to mash people, I think that they're really in a good spot to be able to do that.
Yeah. Chris, we've been talking a lot about, the NBA draft lottery and where guys could end up. Christian Anderson, I didn't realize he measured with like a 6'6" wingspan. He's lanky. Where do you think he gets taken? I've seen that his stock is soaring.
Yeah, and I've seen it's a fascinating year. I've seen all these guys in person, sometimes multiple occasions in Big 12 play, doing the radio stuff for Texas Tech, and been around Christian obviously since he got here. He's arguably one of the best point guards that's ever played at Texas Tech, which is a mouthful. I mean, Keenan Evans was really good, and there's been some others. But, yeah, Christian, he's so young but so mature and kind of an old soul when he's on the court, and there's just an it factor there. I think positional size, I'm sure, is going to be a question. I think that can he get to the paint whenever he wants is a question. Shot making is not a question. Making the right play in his brain and his ability to see the game is not a question. His ability to use angles and leverage and just, you could just tell he's just wired differently. And, I mean, what he did in this league when he kind of got ganged up on at times and people try to be physical with him. And what my favorite thing was, it would bother me as the broadcaster, like, man, he's getting fouled. He's getting bumped. He would never complain. He never changes emotion. He never lets it bother him. He just kind of keeps going. And I think you're looking at probably a top 20 pick. At this point right now, I don't expect him back at Texas Tech. And I think everybody around here would say that's fine. You wish him well and good luck. And then Grant can use that as a recruiting tool. Hey, come here as a high school player. We can get you drafted in the top 20 here pretty quick. So, he's a special player for sure.
Yeah. So who's next for Grant McCasland and Texas Tech? We expect this team to be very good once again. Hopefully, injuries don't derail another successful season this next year. But who's next in your opinion? Who are the guys you're most excited to see?
As far as like on for Coach McCaslin's roster,
Yeah.
well, they've got like I think Taman's going to know this man or the young man by the name of Cruz Davis from Hofstra. I watched him at the NCAA tournament there in Tampa. They played in the first round against Alabama right after Texas Tech beat Akron. And Cruz Davis has already gotten a few NBA workouts. He's a 6'3", point guard, and I think that he's got a chance. And then, what is weird is the best player on your team is JT Toppin, but I think he's gonna. If this 5 for 5 passes, people are just gonna get sick of seeing JT Toppin because I think he can potentially play some this next year. Whereas I think before, if they don't pass the 5 for 5, I think that they redshirt him or look very strongly at that possibility. But I think he can come back and play 10, 15 games and be a hell of a trade deadline acquisition, if you want to look at it that way, and then still come back the following year. He's just a tweener. I just don't know what his NBA future looks like because he's a 6'7", 6'8" post player, a back to the basket guy. And then they added a guy named Dre Gibbs Longhorn from UNLV, averaged 20 a game. And so I think they really like this guard tandem. That's why I think if Christian doesn't come back, they're covered. They were planning on this, anyway. But and Dakari Spear is a top 20 player nationally from a high school standpoint. I know there's a lot of top players in the country that are signing with Big 12 teams, and Dakari's probably a little bit under the radar from that standpoint. But I think they think he's really good. So. Those are a few names I would give to you, and a guy they have yet to. They're not even anywhere near finishing their roster. It's weird because so many of these teams have completed their roster, and you've still got a couple of three pieces to add to be in contention here. You're missing some size. You're missing some starters. There's a guy overseas named Momo Faye that I think that there's pretty strong indications that they are close to getting him and beating out North Carolina and St. John's for him. He's a 6'11" pro that plays over in the Euro League, I think, and he would certainly be somebody that potentially could be in this conversation from a professional standpoint. So he's already a pro. I mean, I'm learning about all this overseas stuff and the way the rules are. Guess what? You can come back over to the old U.S. and make more money than you can over in the professional league over in Europe. So go figure.
Yeah, and I just looked him up. He's playing with a really good club in Paris, and he's starting and putting up really solid numbers. Like, he initially entered his name for the 2024 NBA draft. So he's 21 years old and like you said, really long and lanky. With JT Toppin, so 10 to 15 games, is that based off of kind of like the recovery timeline? I know basketball is a lot different than what's going on with Will Hammond and football. Is that best case scenario, you think, for him?
I was joking with Taman before I came on that I've been forced to become some sort of legal expert as it relates to NCAA rules and gambling.
We'll just call you doctor.
And I've also been forced, and I'm neither. Trust me, but I've been forced to become some sort of ACL recovery expert because we've had some high profile ACL injuries. I think it's. I mean, guys, it's anywhere from, and I think Will is probably in the same boat to a certain extent. I think JT, each injury is different. Each rehab is different, and then there's like, because Patrick Mahomes is another good example, just to keep it in the Texas Tech family. I mean, he hurt his in December, and they're talking like he could be ready in September.
Yeah,
and I think but that's Patrick Mahomes. He's different than most people walking the face of the earth, right? But I think JT is kind of like that too. Will Hammond may be as well, but I think JT is just, his body's different. He's a different level of athlete and all that. So I could see anywhere from, I don't know, late January to early March, I guess. I mean, and anything in between. I just don't know if we know that yet. But I think if everybody's comfortable with it, he certainly could work his way back in, and like I said, be one heck of an addition late in the season. You're just gonna have to maneuver your way through, November, December, and probably some or all of January without him. But when he does come back, I mean, that's a heck of a player to add to any rotation.
Yeah, well said. Chris Level, Texas Tech Red Raider Radio Network, Red Raider Sports, and the Locked On Red Raiders podcast. You're the best, Chris. Appreciate your time as always. Be well.
And keep hope alive, boys. Appreciate you.
There's Chris Level joining us here on Big 12 Radio. Great stuff as always. And yeah, I mean, look, he's as close to it as anybody. And there's a lot of unknowns. And I'd imagine that in the case of Texas Tech and Joey McGuire, like they probably don't even know the timeline for Will Hammond, and certainly they don't know the situation with Sorsby. I think if you're McGuire, you've got to approach this like you're not going to have Sorsby and you're trying to get Hammond ready to play. And if not Hammond, then Francis has got to be ready to play week 1 or whoever else you anticipate. But, like, you have to put it as we're getting the next guy ready to play because I've got to be ready in that case. And if we get Sorsby or we get somebody else, cool, we'll accomplish it that way or figure it out that way. But first you've got to go with what you can control.
Exactly. Yeah, you said Sorsby's no longer a part of the equation for now. You focus on Francis and Jones III, who did throw a few passes in a real game last year against West Virginia. Because I think asking Will Hammond to be ready week 1 is a tall order. That's a tall ask, and not necessarily a great sign for Texas Tech because you don't need to rush him back to be able to beat those other 2 teams because of all the things Chris was talking about with the roster around him. The receivers are better. The offensive line is much improved. The defensive line, probably not as good, but they're just as strong at the linebacking, back 7 level. The highlights I'm watching, by the way, are Momo Faye, who Chris just mentioned Texas Tech is in on. Just saw that North Carolina has backed off because they've filled their roster. Faye is a beast, an absolute beast in the EuroLeague. This would be a huge addition for Texas Tech. This is not like a Luke Bamboye. Yeah. This is a Masamba Diop type of player.
That's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. A really interesting thread on the college football subreddit asks if the BCS era is better than the current era of college football. We discuss next. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
I mean, this is a defense that came in top 5 in the country in sacks. Bray gets another touch, breaks another tackle, cuts it back, and finally is going to...
For this Utah offense, I think he has done a tremendous job coming over from New Mexico.
Yeah, coming in from the Lobos. There goes Parker. Wayshawn. Show me the way to the end zone.
Plus. It wasn't hurdles, it was like steeplechase. Parker for 12 now, in stride, calling wet football. Rodgers carries, and it's a first down use.
To get points before the half.
Dampier was trying to set that up and was very patient, and look at Dampier with the power burst. He ran through a couple different
Big 12.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Along with James Westling, I am Ari Temkin. And, I caught this thread on the college football subreddit, which is always great. And it is it just me being nostalgic, or was college football better in the BCS era? Which is really interesting because all I remember about the BCS era was people complaining about the BCS era.
How much we hated it.
Correct. Death to the BCS. Literally a book written about it. And that was because of all of the ways to decide a national champion in sports, it felt like just deciding on two teams to play in one game felt a little hollow and ridiculous. So, is it absurd? Is it being nostalgic to suggest the BCS era trumps the current system and era?
I think a little bit of both. Both things can be true. My favorite part of this entire thread is somebody notes right off the top, it was easier to follow back then when your team didn't have 24 guys transferring in and out every year. Because I think that's the number one complaint that fans have, at least with this new transfer portal NIL era. But then I'm always here for taking shots at Nebraska. The next comment is, exactly. My son asked me yesterday what I thought about Nebraska's team for next season, and I told him I have no idea, just way too many transfers to know. The response is, well, you kind of know, but who wants to tell their kid that their team has some potential that they'll probably squander on their way to a 5-win season? Nobody has a worse record outside of Rutgers against top 25 teams in the conference realignment era than Nebraska. They're like 2-27 against top 25 teams. It's insane. So I love the shots fired at the Huskers. But yeah, I think, the difference between now and then, back then I should say, is that back then every game mattered more than it does now. Because every game was a must-win to have a chance at a national championship. The difference back then was fans and teams still got really excited about high-quality bowl games that weren't necessarily the national championship. Today, it's just different in that every game still matters. You can't afford to lose to a below 500 team and expect to be in the college football playoff. Like, every game still matters. It just looks different because you can afford to have 1 or 2 or even 3 in some cases losses and still make the field and have a chance.
So then every game doesn't matter
as much. Still matters. Like I said, you can't lose to a below 500 team and still expect to be in the playoff.
Right. I mean, but I think you answered your own question there. In the BCS era and even the 14 playoff era, you couldn't lose.
Exactly.
And now you can lose 3 times, maybe even 4 times. Who knows? If we get to a 24-team playoff, we're going to have 4 lost teams in there.
Oh, very much so.
Maybe even worse. I would say I'm not nostalgic for the BCS era because it just couldn't exist in today's world, right? I mean, we've gotten so far down this road, like there's just no way they couldn't have established a more of a playoff system. But I think the thing we're nostalgic for is exactly what was outlined in that Reddit subthread, and that is it's just the transfer portal, which makes it really difficult to fall in love with a team. If there's one thing to me that may kill the sport long term, it's that. Right? I mean, when we were on campus and going to school, the athletes were among us. They were at classes with us. We'd see them on campus. We'd see them at bars. Even if, you're not at school there, but you live in that community, same thing. There is a kinship that you feel like you could pull aside an athlete that went to K-State and say, like, oh, yeah, tell me about this time you had in Aggieville. There's a commonality, a common experience that we all share that gives us that common ground that no longer feels like it's adequate, that no longer feels like it's a part of it. I think that, more than anything, is, we could talk about the money, and I don't, should people be upset about the money? I'm not going to tell people how to feel about whatever, but, the end of the day, there's tons of money in this for coaches, for administrators, for everybody, but the players.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing that they're finally getting their slice of the pie. To me, it's the roster turnover, the roster churn, that you're not getting to know these players in a way that you used to, that helped you fall in love with the team. Look, you're going to fall in love with the name on the front of the jersey, but I think some teams are going to be you're more likely to like and love than others, based on the composition of the roster and based on how familiar you are with those players.
And
we used to know our players. Now we don't.
Totally. And you used to be able to look at a roster and say, okay, this guy has eligibility remaining, he'll be back. This kid will be back. Basketball and football, all sports. And now you look at a roster, and it's a total reset every single year.
Yeah.
And in basketball, because the rosters are so much smaller, it hit basketball first. But now it's hitting football too. When you're talking about over half of a roster being completely new, most programs on average are bringing in about a third of their roster via the portal every offseason. You add in high school recruits, and that's a lot of turnover that we haven't seen. The other thing, like comparing the two eras, in the BCS era, like there was plenty of controversy. Controversy and these type of conversations have existed in college football since the dawn of the sport.
Yeah.
Right? In 2003, Oklahoma played in the national championship game right after they lost 35-7 to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. In 2011, you had a rematch of Alabama and LSU. Even back in the 90s, like when BCS first came on the map, there was always debate about, did the computers get it right? Why is one team ranked higher than another? So that's always existed, and it's always going to exist, because now, even with a 24-team playoff,
right, there's some teams that are left out.
Exactly. If there's 23,
5-loss Alabama team, how do they not get in? Man,
totally. If there's a 23-team at-large pool, I mean, it looks a little bit different in terms of, like, we know these teams are in, and now we're talking seeding, but the debate then becomes bubble teams, like we have in college basketball. What does the college football bubble look like? Should a Boise State or a Texas State or a North Texas get in over so-and-so? They might be 12-0, but Alabama's 8-4 and they're Alabama. Like, that'll be the new debate. It's always going to exist.
Well, and look, I think just human nature to look back fondly on things. That's nostalgia, right, where you're only going to focus on the positives and you won't reflect on the negatives. I'm sure you get 20, 30 years from now and people will, whatever the system looks like, want this system back. I'll say the other thing about the BCS era, aside from transfer portals, that I think played into what made a year successful was the way in which these conferences were regional. Because we talked about this a ton. Like, if you won your conference, man, that was a big deal. If you beat your rival, that was a big deal. If you got to 9 or 10 wins, that was a big deal. These are things that are no longer a big deal in the modern era. Now, it depends on certain teams, it would be, but and having that regional rivalry bragging rights mattered a ton. It matters a lot less now. I don't work with a ton of people that went to West Virginia, right? I don't see a bunch of people that went to UCF, although it does feel like now I see more and more of those around Dallas, so maybe I'm wrong about that regionality of it. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of how these conferences used to be constructed, there was very much a regional tie, and you went to work and were around and in your community with lots of people that went to the different schools that, would be a part of those relationships you had with those people, watching games with them, bragging to them, complaining to them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, the two things that are better and play into why the BCS era was different was the regionality of the conferences and the transfer portal.
Yep.
And you did not have as much player movement, which allowed you to know players better. Now, the contrast to that is player movement has allowed for way better rosters across the board. Allows for an era where Indiana can win a national championship, which never would have happened in the BCS era, ever. I mean, not only would they have never gotten into a BCS game in the first place, they would have never been able to build a roster that was capable of winning a national championship. The contrast to the regionality part is, look at how many more schools now get an opportunity that weren't having that opportunity before. Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, I mean, these were schools and programs that were part of conferences or independents that didn't allow them access and seats at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, even every part of the BCS era that looks and appears to be better have counter-arguments that are very easily made to prove that it wasn't even better.
Totally. And the two things that we're missing most from that era have nothing to do with the BCS or how many teams get a chance to play for a national championship. It's the player movement and the rivalries, which tie into your regionality within the conferences.
Yeah.
The maintained rivalries that no longer exist, or the rivalries that do exist, but you don't necessarily have that rivalry baked into your schedule every year. Also, like other things like the bowl games, players and teams opting out, the Heisman race doesn't really seem to matter. But on the flip side, what makes college football at a level it's never been is the similarity and the parallels to the NFL. Players are getting paid. There's free agency within the portal. You've got more teams with a chance to win a national championship. And the conferences, like not being regional, none of that is the Big 12's fault, right? Like the major geographical shifts that we saw in conference realignment, even when Big 12 schools, old Big 12 schools, were involved, was nothing like when the Pac-12 dissolved and those guys headed to the Big 10. And USC and UCLA are playing Iowa and Maryland and Rutgers.
Yeah.
Like, that was the big geographics no longer matter. Rivalries no longer matter. That was the moment versus anything else that the Big 12 was even associated with in any way.
So what do you think? No, the BCS era was not better. Are we crazy?
If we could take the best from both.
But even then, like, I admit player movement sucks, but player movement also doesn't suck. Player movement allowed Indiana to win a national championship in football. That should speak to every single fan of every single Big 12 team. We can do that. If Indiana can do it, everybody can do it. There was an era of college football where you, going into the season, could not win a national title. There was a very select amount of schools in the BCS era that could. Player movement changed that. Maybe the rivalries we've lost are the one thing you'd keep from the previous era. Maybe. But I don't know what else you'd keep from the previous era. Every nostalgic aspect of the previous era that we might think, well, that would fit in today's world, wouldn't. Player movement is difficult because we don't know who to like. And maybe it's better for football than it is for basketball, because in basketball it feels like it's, only made the top even better. Maybe it's done the same for football too, because we're looking at it from a Power 4 lens. But every argument on nostalgia for the BCS era is offset by counter-arguments that show why the sport is actually better.
Right.
I know I've seen this ESPN is running so much for the SEC. It's like, you don't think ESPN was in on, the BCS era? Like, come on. Come on.
Very much so.
Yeah.
The SEC just didn't have Texas, didn't have Oklahoma.
And the exclusive contract with ESPN, but ESPN was always wanting the best games. Because, of course, they were.
Right. And with the free agency, which is the portal, that stuff is fun to me. Like, I love looking at recruiting rankings and who's going where and who's tied to what team and what school. Like, this past offseason, I was
hooked.
So hooked on who could end up at what school and could Texas Tech reload? Who was going to be the next David Bailey? What were they going to do at quarterback with Baron Morton now gone? Dante Moore's coming back to Oregon. Like, there were so many exceptional storylines throughout this offseason that we wouldn't have in the past.
Yeah, I mean, think about Ole Miss. We did the re-ranking the 2025 class, and Ole Miss, I think, went from 4 to 3. But if you go back and look at their ranking, I'm sure they didn't have a quarterback from Ferris State as being a major reason why they'd be ranked higher.
Exactly.
Ferris State? What in the world is that? A quarterback? No. Right? So, even though we look at this and be like, well, the highest bidders will have the best teams and blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, but there's still these great stories like Trinidad Chambliss.
Fernando Mendoza.
Bear Bachmeier.
And maybe this is a different conversation if Indiana doesn't win the national championship. If it is Georgia again or Alabama or Ohio State.
Yep.
Indiana has opened the door for everybody else. Like, this was such a pivotal moment in college football, not just now in the present, but for the future, because you're spot on in that every other school can look at that and say, why not us? Which is why, as Big 12 Nation, we were so behind Indiana and their run. If it couldn't be Texas Tech, we were pulling for Indiana. And they looked like, in these games, not just the better coach team, they looked like the more talented team in a lot of these games.
I would say over time, the sport has evolved in a way that is positive. Is it perfect? No, of course not. But don't let the lack of perfection get in the way of nostalgia, having us completely disregard some of the best aspects of the modern system. That's James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Let's talk Arizona State softball with pitcher Meika Lauppe next. They just won the Big 12 tournament over Texas Tech, and they beat the top 3 seeds en route to doing so. We'll talk with Meika Lauppe next. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
He didn't get to learn from the wet staff guy that maybe playing on Sundays. Well, he seems to be doing okay right now. As Barry Bachmeier's pass is complete for a first down to Carson Ryan. Big chunk yard runs here tonight. 2 in the 40s, 1 in the 50s. Down to the end zone. Ryan! Oh, he has it. What a catch. Touchdown. On Instagram, 1.3 million followers. It's a phenomenal museum with books from the last 600 years. Well, the book on this offense is that it has a lot of potential. Ryan making the catch for the first down. Redswell from the program. Bachmeier began to start. Bear will throw another open man. Carson Ryan strolling in for the touchdown. Ryan's second of the season. There, Bachmeier with time over the middle. Completed midfield and a first down catch by tight end Carson Ryan. That was intense. Josh Eagle on the sideline with
Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, along with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. We are presented by Modelo. And a pretty dynamic 1-2 punch for Arizona State pitching, Kenzie Brown and Meika Lauppe. Meika with a 13-4 record, 1.394 ERA, 1.55 walks and hits per innings pitched. Meika joining us here on Big 12 Radio after Arizona State's improbable Big 12 tournament championship. And Meika, let's start right there. You knock off in-state rival Arizona as the 3 seed, then Oklahoma State as the 2 seed, and that's basically on the road in Oklahoma City, and then you get big bad Texas Tech. How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, we went into the weekend just kind of thinking like, hey, we have nothing to lose. Let's give it everything we have. This is the time to be hot. And when we beat Arizona, I mean, it was huge. Our pitching was on, our hitting was on, our defense was stellar. So we start off 1-0 against our rival. You can't ask for any more. And then it just kept rolling. Like, we're like, all right, well, if we make it through today, we got Oklahoma State tomorrow. We've already beat them in the series. Like, let's keep it moving. And the time to beat Texas Tech, well, it's at the Big 12 championship, and we were able to do that. And that was just incredible. The support from everyone was amazing. And we just really could not be more grateful. And to have all 3 facets of the game going at the right time, it was awesome.
Yeah, Meika, what's the difference between this version of Arizona State and Arizona State from a couple of months ago?
I would say as a team, we've just became much more connected as the season continues to progress, just spending time with each other. And I mean, there's always in our group chat, we're always talking about, okay, what's next? After we found out that, we were playing A&M, it was already like, okay, these are the pitchers we're going to be facing in the regional. Like, and of course, like, we still have more work to do at practice, but just our time outside of practice and how we're utilizing that.
What's it been like to, have a pitcher like Kenzie with you and just kind of how have you guys helped each other improve?
Yeah, Kenzie has been amazing. I've had her since my freshman year. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play with her my freshman year. But every day in the bullpen, it's nice to have someone who obviously is so special. She's an All-American, but she's also just a great human being. So she's able to push me and connect with me. We've been through a lot together, and I seriously could not be more grateful to have Kenzie Brown as another person in the bullpen. Like, she's really a special person.
Well, tell us about your childhood, growing up in a super small town, right? Like 300 kids in the entire high school, and I know that you have tremendous support from your family. I was reading about what your grandparents rent a house for the first 5 weeks of the season to go to home games. So what was it like making the adjustment from growing up in that area to now being on this stage and playing in a place like Arizona State?
Yeah, definitely. When I was growing up, my high school had 300 kids, and so coming here was difficult at times. But that's another way that like Kenzie came into play. Kenzie comes from a super small town too, in the middle of Illinois. So she kind of helped me navigate like, okay, yeah, this is a big city, but there's another community within Arizona State and Arizona State athletics. And I've really found my home and my family here. And they've really made me, my family, and my grandparents who love staying here for the first month of season feel connected. And we've really gained some amazing relationships because of it.
Yeah, so now postseason play, like how do you get ready for your regional and what do you guys need to do to be successful here?
Definitely. Yeah, I think working in the bullpen, we're just really going to be focusing on pounding the zone and making sure that we can keep runners. Our number one goal is always for our leadoff out. And then from there, just letting our defense work behind us. And the hitters, I just know they're going to be so well prepared. They've been doing so great together. And our lineup, I mean, it's hard to throw to them in practice. I feel bad for any team that has to face them.
Arizona State softball pitcher Meika Lauppe is with us here on Big 12 Today. Meika, why do you wear jersey number 27?
So I had a really special person in my life that at the age of 13, he had a stroke and had to have a heart valve inserted into him. And from that point on, like he obviously he couldn't use his left side very well, but that literally did not stop him at all. He was the brightest light. One thing that like he loved to talk about is he ended up becoming mayor of our rival town. Like
Wow.
just was who he was. Like that embodied him. He did anything and everything. And my dad always said that he was handed a 2-7 hand in life, which is the worst hand you can get in poker, but he did anything and everything. And he ended up passing a couple of years ago, but that's why I do what I do.
Wow. So okay, so your number is for 7-2 basically, like or 2-7.
Yeah.
The worst
Yes.
hand in poker, mathematically the worst hand in poker.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, it's not a good one. Which is amazing. You decided like I'm gonna wear a number that has the like
Yeah. Yep.
the bad luck hand in
Exactly.
poker. That's
Yep.
incredible.
But I mean, we only get one life, so you got to make the most of it.
Do you play poker?
Yeah, I do. Growing up, my dad had a set of poker chips, and so that's what we would do at night was really blackjack, poker, anything that me and my brothers and my dad could all play together.
Do you have is there like is it Hold'em or what's
Yes,
your game?
yes.
Okay, nice.
Yep.
That is amazing. And I know you've got a friend that you grew up with from your hometown that moved to the Valley, and like what's it like when you go back home, just being this, being such a huge part of what Arizona State is doing, playing on national television. Like I'd love to hear some stories about what that's like.
Yeah, when I go back home, it's pretty special. I mean, no matter where I show up, whether it's my brother's graduation or football games or church, everyone's coming up and telling me how proud they are of me and that this is the first time that they've ever turned on ESPN or paid for ESPN. And it's pretty special. And I'm always having people reach out and text me, people that I had no idea even like knew how to work a TV. And it's pretty cool.
Knew how to work a TV.
Yes, yes.
That's insane.
What will it take to upset Texas A&M?
I think if we keep rolling the way we are, we're going to be just fine, and I think we will have the ability to make a big impact in that A&M regional. As long as all three facets of the game are going on and we're all picking each other up, no matter if one person gets out in the lineup, we've got 8 other people that are performing above and beyond. So I think we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, and I mean, how underrated is the Big 12 when you consider the strength at the top with Tech and Oklahoma State, and then you guys weren't an NCAA tournament team until you won the conference. How underrated is this conference?
Oh, it is absolutely underrated. I don't think that the Big 12 gets enough credit. It's a tough conference no matter where you're playing in it. Every team, you have to go in thinking like, okay, they're not just going to roll over for us. We're not going to roll over for them. And every team in the Big 12 has beat some really great teams outside of the conference. And so I think the Big 12 is definitely going to make a big showing in the regionals as well.
So take us through that Big 12 championship game. As you're watching, at what point did you kind of realize, okay, this could really happen, number one, and then, was there ever a point where you thought, hey, if we can just get past this inning or this batter, like we can do this thing? When did it all start to hit you?
So I think the first couple innings, it's 0-0 and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be a close game all the way through. And then Tanya Wendell, actually my roommate, she gets the home run to start off. And then we end up scoring 4 runs in that inning. And after that, everyone's like, okay, like if we give up 1 run or 2 runs or even 3 runs, like we've still got this game won. And so I think it was about the 5th inning, people were like, okay, 6 outs, like just 1 batter at a time. And we were like we could really do this. Like this is it for us. And I don't think any of us or even our coaches ever had any doubt that it was like, oh, like we might not be able to make it. but like we were in that moment and just feeling the energy, and our fans are just incredible. And we were like, okay, we can do this right now. And it was pretty special, that last pitch, that last out that Ashley caught.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. Tell us about your coach. What makes, how have you been able to do this season, and what makes them special?
I think our coaches are just very relationship oriented, which is really cool. And so they know how to connect with each of us on a level that really just, even in the bad moments, they can talk to us personally. And we actually have a new coach, Coach John, and he's really made this special. I mean, he's been here in these moments before, and he just doesn't make it bigger than it is. It's one pitch at a time. It's hit your spot, and spin the ball through the zone, and you're going to be just fine. And it's been awesome.
That's awesome.
Having him.
Yeah. Really appreciate your time and insight here. Congratulations on an incredible run through the Big 12, and good luck moving forward in the regional. Meika Lauppe from Arizona State. Thanks for your time, Meika. Be well.
Thank you.
Great stuff from Meika Lauppe, the Arizona State softball pitcher, along with Kenzie Brown, having historic seasons for Arizona State softball. And, when you think about how good of a season this Big 12 has had, I mean, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, Arizona, Kansas, Arizona State, UCF, all tournament teams. It's been a really fun run.
And they're rolling right now. I mean, it still blows my mind that Arizona State was 11-13 in league, and Lauppe was fantastic on Friday against Oklahoma State. She started, she pitched most of the game. She didn't issue a single walk to any of the 33 Oklahoma State batters that she faced in Arizona State. That's really that was the big eye-opening, I think, win for that program. And then to have your ace in the circle against Texas Tech, that massive fifth inning to where they start to believe, we're going to do this thing. I wouldn't want to be Texas A&M. I mean, that is one of the hottest teams in the field that you've got to welcome to College Station.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. On the way next, what did we miss from the show today? It's next, Big 12 Today.
And Bell is in the corner for Wyoming. And Sam Levitt on the move, completes the pass. There's Mateer, the tight end, and into the end zone for an ASU touchdown. Shimon Mateer.
Levitt rolling out, throwing to the end zone. Touchdown, Mateer.
To go until halftime. Levitt will throw short to the tight end. There he goes. Touchdown, Sun Devils. Mateer, 16 yards, and it's 20-0.
Levitt steps out of the tackle. He'll throw it again. That's a touchdown. It's Mateer back in the game.
Already run 52 plays. Rudo gets his chance. They fake it to him, set up the tight end screen. Shimon Mateer to the outside for a touchdown.
Third and 8. The adjustment is made. Mateer, flag down, catch is made, touchdown, Shimon Mateer.
5-minute mark, 8th play of the drive. This one down the seam for a touchdown. Shimon Mateer with an 18-yard score.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, along with James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. Great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Tune in Big 12 Studios. And now, of course, the brand spanking new Big 12 app featuring Big 12 Radio. Breaking news, scores, and us. What could be better? Download the Big 12 app today. It's brand new. It gives you everything you need to be in line with everything going on Big 12-wise. Check it out. Big 12. Download the app. Have
Clean.
you done some browsing, perusing the Big 12 app?
Clean, easy to read, easy to navigate, all the things I need now in an app. I think I'm inching closer to needing to enlarge the font size on my phone.
Oh,
which is
you're that years old?
Real wake-up call. It's not good. I'm holding my phone way too close to my face. And so I'm considering it. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we're inching closer to maybe bumping it up just one small little line.
Man, when you see somebody that has giant font on their phone, first thing you think of is, wow, they're old.
I never think they might just have bad eyes. I think, yes, they're old. They're ancient. That could be me.
Wow.
I don't like it.
Yeah. I'm glad you're admitting it, though, here on live on the radio. I love it. It's a great idea.
Like, I noticed it a couple of nights ago. I'm laying on the couch, and I was reading something, and I had the phone, like, inches from my face. You all right?
Yeah.
And I thought, what am I doing? What am I doing? Either now we've got two options. Just I can't see what's on the phone, or I've got to increase the font size, and I don't know which is better. I'm considering both.
Can't see. Way better.
Yeah, I'm with you on
There's
that.
nothing that important in your phone.
No. Upon retirement, what do you have in mind?
I'm sorry, what?
When you retire, what's on your bucket list?
What?
Is it becoming mayor of a town of about 2,600 people?
No.
Because if it was, you would have something in common with former Kansas basketball legend Greg Ostertag. The 7'2" former Kansas center who helped KU make it to a Final Four, by the way, back in the 90s, back in 93. So he was
Can I just tell you, he's easily my least favorite Kansas Jayhawk of all time.
Okay, why?
Well, two reasons. You could probably guess the first reason. He was on those Utah Jazz teams that lost to the Bulls in consecutive years. But as I got older in the business, I did a lot of, at the time they were called the Austin Toros games.
Okay, so this has nothing to do with him as a player at KU.
No.
Oh, let's go. I'm here for it. Spill the tea.
It has everything to do with the fact that he played for the Jazz when I most hated the Jazz, and then my opinion of him was only reinforced when I met him in person, and I was doing the Austin Toros games way back in the day, and he played for a team called the Texas Legends. That's right.
Wait.
Greg Ostertag. He's retired now, thankfully, but played well into his 40s for the G League.
Post-Utah Jazz, he still played?
Very post-Utah Jazz. Very post-Utah Jazz. So he was holding on for dear life, and I could feel it. And, like, there were, like, when I did Austin Toros games, Jeremy Lin was in the G League. Like, I got to Danny Green, a guy that went on to win multiple championships. So I got to see and be around a bunch of former NBA players or future NBA players, including the former NBA player Greg Ostertag. So I was all jacked up, like, whoa, Ostertag is in this game? Like, that's amazing. And so I went and said something to him pregame. Could not have been less enthusiastic, less, like, just walked up to him and was like, hey, great to meet you. I'm a Jayhawk. Okay.
What?
Okay. Yeah, that's so cool. And, like, I'm just trying to keep the conversation alive, blah, blah, and, like, just completely disregarded me.
Dude, he big-timed you.
Big-timed me to the largest degree. And, like, what was almost less excited about that I was a Jayhawk than anything. So after that day, I was like, well, Greg Ostertag's on my list.
All right, I have a lot of questions. Does he hate KU, number one? Or number two, I mean, Let's be real. He was kind of the weak link, the weak spot of that Utah Jazz starting five.
Yeah, he
For
was.
a long time,
That's right.
and I'm sure he knew that. It was a very public narrative. Like Karl Malone, John Stockton, Hornacek, and who?
Greg Wuttertag?
He was just there because he was big and he could rebound and foul.
Well, I didn't even say anything about the Bulls. You know, I would understand if
If
I
you
went up to
greeted him and like, I'm from Chicago, huge Bulls fan.
yeah, like,
Thanks for sucking.
but it was all like, I'm a Jayhawk. Like, this is great to meet you. And he's like, oh, okay.
Dude,
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Huge disappointment. So what
Well, he just
what
got
inconsequential town is he now the mayor of?
he just got elected mayor of a small town in East Texas. He was elected mayor of Mount Vernon, Texas.
Mount Vernon.
Is that pretty close to us?
It's got decent athletes. There's some dudes that come from Mount Vernon.
Yeah, I knew that. He made $48 million in the NBA, and now he owns Tag's Hometown Bar and Grill in downtown Mount Vernon. He manages a 50-acre farm. He also owns a camel
Okay.
named Norman. He's a husband and a father. So after retirement, after his Texas Legends G League days, he went out to Arizona, spent 10 years there, and then he relocated to Mount Vernon. He's from Duncanville.
Okay, I did not realize I was going to ask, is he from Dallas or is he from...
He's from Duncanville. That's his hometown. So he moves to Mount Vernon, buys a bunch of land, and quickly became quite the fixture in the community.
Can imagine
In
so.
a town of 2,600 people, when you're 7'2", you get questions. People recognize you. But yeah, now he's running a town of 2,600 people and serving burgers.
I'm kind of want to go check out his bar and see if his opinion of me has changed since we last met. I think it's just like an hour and a half from Dallas, by the way.
Oh,
so
we
it's
gotta
not
go.
far at all.
We've got to approach him.
Should we do it?
Yes, it needs to happen. What would
do
you say to him? I just lead with, do you remember me?
No, I should just, because of course he doesn't. I should just lead with the assumptive. I'm sure you remember me.
I'm sure you remember me. And I'll be in the background. I'll be like, yeah, you remember him?
This face. You don't forget a face like that.
You remember that guy? I'll be right. He's 7'2". I want no part of that. So I'll be in the background, just kind of showering you with compliments and really backing you up everything you say.
I would say there's probably about a 0% chance he remembers me. I'd give it like at least a 0.1 for margin of error, but there's a 0% chance he remembers me. This is the type of situation that I remember that he'll be like, I have no idea. Even if I told him the story, he'd be like, yeah, I still don't remember that.
Do you think he would apologize?
No. He doesn't have any reason to apologize. Like, what does he apologize for? Sorry I wasn't more enthusiastic that you also went to Kansas?
If you told him he was a jerk face, he might apologize.
Well, yeah, maybe.
He's running. He's the mayor.
Yeah, at this point, I'm sure his ego is through the roof. And at this point, quite frankly, I'm willing to meet him there.
Yeah, but you can't become the mayor unless you're nice to people. Like, you don't vote in that. He has to be very well liked.
It's a fair point.
Dude, I got you on this.
When I first met him, I thought he could eat me. He's a giant man.
Yeah, he was 7'2", 300.
Yeah, he's not a small man.
Man.
Yeah,
This is quite the story.
Maybe we'll go out there and be like, hey, can we do some work on your farm?
Yeah. Put us to work.
Yeah.
That's it. That'll be our end. I got you on this. Hey, Greg, you got a problem? You got a problem, Greg?
You got a problem, old
Because
man?
this guy does. This guy's got a problem with you.
At that point, I look at him and say, he went to Kansas State.
He could crush me with his bare hands.
Yeah.
It's like the Incredible Hulk. That's all I remember about him is he was huge. He wasn't even that good at KU. He was the 5th best player on KU starting
That's
five.
the most amazing thing. Like, he started on a Western Conference championship team that played twice in a row against the Bulls in the finals. And he wasn't even he barely cracked the top 5 of his college team. He was just in a world in which 7'2" ruled the roost. He was that. That was he.
Rex Walters, Adonis Jordan, Steve Woodbury, Darren Hancock, and Greg Ostertag.
He was top 2, top 3.
What? On the KU team that made the Final Four, he averaged 5 points and 4 rebounds.
Wow. It's a lot worse than I expected.
But that was only his sophomore year. Okay, he got a little bit better.
Yeah, right, because that was the Final Four team
Yeah.
where he wasn't as big of a factor.
But he was the starting center. Actually, did he even start on that team? No, he came off the bench with Jared Haas and Rafe LaFrance, Scott Vaughn, Scott Pollard, Jock Vaughn, Billy Thomas.
Okay, so yeah, that
Greg
team
Ostertag.
is not cracking the top 5.
No. In fact, he was the 6th leading scorer on that team.
In fact, you could probably argue that even post NBA, he's still not in the top 5. Like Scott Pollard was on what's the reality show he went? Survivor. Billy Thomas is like an executive in the NBA. Jacques Vaughn is an assistant coach in Kansas.
Maybe the head coach in waiting. Jared Haas was a pretty successful head coach. I think now he's like an ESPN analyst. Where's Rafe LaFrance? What's he up to these days?
He might be just better off than Rafe LaFrance.
I'll find it.
It's amazing. Where are they now, Greg Ostertag edition? If they're not being as enthusiastic as because you meet other like famous former Jayhawk players, and like the enthusiasm they have over meeting a Jayhawk is pretty high. Yeah. Where like my expectation was like he's gonna be jacked up, he's gonna be really excited, and it was met with like the least amount of excitement possible, and that just completely threw me off because I'd never experienced that before. It's like I thought we were buddies.
See, and that was always
I thought we were friends.
Like that was always my number one fear of approaching an idolized athlete at any age, as a child, as an adult, that I would get that reaction because I would feel the same way and I would never recover.
Well, they say don't ever meet your heroes. Now, far be it from me to say Greg Ostertag's my hero. I did meet Michael Jordan once at his house when he was handing out Halloween candy, so that was cool.
Was he nice?
Yeah, he sat outside, stood outside for hours on end handing out Halloween candy to kids for hours.
That's MJ being MJ.
Yeah, and now the stories I've heard about him now, it's like, thank God I met him then.
Well, The Last Dance didn't do him any favors.
No, and I just think his just natural demeanor. And now, granted, look, if you're at the height of the popularity that he was, that he could not leave his house without being mobbed, like, I get it.
Yeah, that would suck.
Would suck.
That would not be fun.
Yeah.
Rafe LaFrance, by the way, he made $84 million in the NBA, even though he's considered a bust. He made $84 million. He lives in a small town in northeast Iowa, around where he grew up. He bought a former roller skating ring. He converted it into a basketball facility.
That's amazing.
Now he coaches youth basketball.
That's cool. Way to go, Rafe. I'll still give him a nod.
Small town in Iowa.
That's awesome. You wrote this on the rundown. Just very curious why. How do you catch a cold?
Oh, I don't know if we have time for that, but I'm going to ask you guys, how do you catch a cold?
Germs. James, it's 2026. Do you not believe in germs?
Okay, germs.
Not from cold weather.
Being around someone who has a cold.
Okay.
Also known as germs.
Okay. All right. That's all I need to know.
Okay. Why, does somebody feel differently?
Maybe.
Okay. We'll have to delve into this tomorrow. Because it's not from being cold outside.
No, I know that.
Okay.
I know that. I know you have a very hard stance on that.
Very hard. Scientifically proven.
Both of your answers told me everything I need to know.
In a good or bad way?
There is no good or bad way.
I feel like you're being very judgmental, and I'm not happy about ending the show that way.
There's no good or bad way. There's no wrong answer, but you both had very clear answers that I'll explain tomorrow.
All right. That's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. Thanks, of course, to Anthony Smith, our producer with Big 12 Studios, and, of course, Taman Turner, our producer with Tune In. We are back tomorrow. We are highlighting the top 5 quarterbacks. We made it all the way to QBs. Top 5 QBs tomorrow. But for now, we're out. Peace.